testosterone.
Lower T.
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text REP to 321-321 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text REP to 321-321. That's REP to 321-321.
The GCU men's basketball squad is coming off their winningest season in 35 years, their third trip to the NCAA tournament in 4 years, and their first ever NCAA tournament victory. Returning 4 of their 5 starters in Ray Harrison, Colin Moore, Duke Brennan, and reigning WAC Player of the Year, Tyon Grant Foster, the Lopes look to defend their WAC titles and make a run to the Sweet 16. With a non-conference slate, including Stanford, Georgia, and crosstown rival Arizona State, you won't want to miss a moment of the action. So join me, Michael Potter, and Lopes insider Paul Coro all season long, right here on the home of the Lopes, 1580 The Fanatic. Lopes up.
What's up, everybody? Nick Costos here, host of You Better You Bet, reminding you to check out the show. Now, why should you check out You Better You Bet? Because we bring you the most fun. We bring you the most insightful, the most entertaining show in the wagertainment world. From up-to-the-minute breakdowns of backdoor covers, bad beats, and the cheers and tears that come alongside them. Plus, you'll get the best betting analysis anywhere from myself, Ken Barkley, and some of the best minds in the sports wagering world. So tune in weekdays, noon to 3 on Arizona sports betting station, 1580 and 99.3, The Fanatic.
So I was trying to figure out how polarizing this is going to be. I have no idea. But I'm thinking about the Steelers, which is not something I do very often. Not for any particular reason. I'm just not a big AFC North person. That's not me. That's not my bag in particular. But the Steelers are such an interesting team. The Steelers are fascinating. They're a team with a great defense. TJ Watt might just be the best defensive player in football. And in addition to that, you've got Mike Tomlin, who is, no matter what happens next in his career, unless he just completely falls off of a cliff, which never happens to Mike Tomlin teams, by the way, Mike Tomlin's going to be in the Hall of Fame as a head coach. Storied career. He's got the Super Bowl. He's got the hardware to back it up. Sure, he hasn't won in a very long time, but a lot of that's been attached to the quarterback position, which is what got me thinking about those Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is the question that I have for the Steelers. And I think it's a question that a lot of people have. And the answer may seem kind of obvious, but I kind of want to know where the fourth dimension is with this. Do the Steelers ride the hot hand with Justin Fields? Because it does seem like their ceiling's not that high with Fields right now. Fields goes out there. For the most part, he does exactly what he's supposed to do. He doesn't take a lot of mistakes. He doesn't take a lot of risks. He protects the football. He's the game manager with explosive running ability. Like the player that people were saying that Brock Purdy was, Justin Fields actually is, except when Justin Fields takes off to run, that's just legitimately 10 to 15 yards every time. That's proving to be a little bit more dangerous than we thought. Whereas Russell Wilson, that was the guy that in training camp anyway, earned the job. Now, I'm not saying that just because you earned it in training camp means you should get it back. But you have to think the Steelers saw something with Russell Wilson in training camp to suggest that he was the better player because they were going to start him. And I don't know what direction it is that the Steelers are going to go into, but I just think it's really interesting where they're stuck. 4808 says, hey, first-time texter, long-time listener, I am a big Mets fan here. Grew up watching some of those great teams for the 1980s on the New York Superstation WPIX in Nova Scotia. Been hooked ever since. Also a big fan of the Ottawa Senators, the Halifax Mooseheads, the New England Patriots, and the Boston Celtics. He also says, keep up the good work, which I appreciate. 4808. That's, first off, wow. You have your entire sports life worked out, and I appreciate that. I will also say, as we do around here, going to need something from you. Gonna need a texter nickname from you, 4808. But welcome aboard. Thanks for texting after listening for a while. Really do appreciate that. Got him Sauce says, I think it's ridiculous to bench any quarterback that's 4-2 overall without cause. I think so too, but they're thinking it over. Like, I don't know how overblown that story is because I'm not in Pittsburgh and I have a few friends that cover a couple of NFL teams, but I don't know anybody in Pittsburgh, so I couldn't tell you. But I do think that Justin Fields has earned the right to keep this job, and he's starting to do a little bit more. They're putting a little bit more on his plate. They're asking him to make more plays than he was in the first couple of weeks, and you could see the confidence from Justin Fields returning. He's finally behind an offensive line that's nice. Look, it's not great, but it's better than the one that was in Chicago, and he's not running for his life. And I think the fact that, when he was in Chicago, they would have these routes that were long, developing routes. They take time for guys to get open downfield. I just don't think you could ask Justin to do that because where he was in his development, they had not taught him how to do that, clearly. Because he's doing it now in Pittsburgh when the routes are shorter, when he can get the ball out quickly, when he can be sorry, I just saw a moist one text that I'm not reading out loud. But he can get the ball out quickly. He can make those kinds of decisions that keep the Steelers on track, that keep them ahead of the sticks, moving the chains, and then that defense brings it home. Justin Fields doesn't have to go out and be a superhero. He can just play game manager, and it works for the Steelers. It works for what they want to do. In fact, I would make the argument Mike Tomlin over the last several years would have been a little bit more successful if they did have some kind of game manager that could also give them a burst every now and then. So I believe you got him, Sauce. I think that it would be ridiculous to bench a quarterback at 4-2, but at least the way the media is talking about it, and at least the way that it seems that the Steelers are saying it out loud, and maybe this is just gamesmanship, and they're just trying to freak out. Who do they play next? I knew the answer to this. So maybe it's just a little bit of gamesmanship on their part, but it just seems like they're trying to freak out the Jets a little bit by having them think about which quarterback might be going out there, because Russell Wilson and Justin Fields do play differently enough that you might have to prepare for Russell Wilson differently than you do for Justin Fields. Big Jake says Ohio State most certainly outplayed the Ducks. They sure did. And they really had no business winning. The penalty was more penal than most and felt like the sole reason Ohio State lost. Well, and that the boneheaded play by the quarterback literally running out the clock. And look, that matters. Like, you can outplay an opponent, but if they do the little things better than you, they win. And Oregon did two little things better. One, simply, they understood the rules and how to take advantage of them. That counts. I'm sorry. That goes into your ability to win football games, is to understand the situations and the scenarios that are happening out there and use them. The other issue is, if your quarterback has a boneheaded play, that means he doesn't understand, situational awareness. He doesn't understand how to keep that mental clock in his mind so that he knows this is when I need to get down. Not when the clock says 0, but when the clock says 2, 1, if you're feeling really gutsy, which I have no idea why he was feeling that day. But yeah, that Ohio State was the better football team on that field. The better football team does not always win football games. Sometimes the team that is the most prepared wins football games. Sometimes the team that's the healthiest wins football games. Sometimes the team that gets the bounces that go their way win football games. But the fact is, when you look at the overall record of Ohio State under Ryan Day in these games, it's 2-6 against top 5 teams. And you have to imagine Ohio State was the better team in at least a good chunk of those games. So why are they 2-6? That's the thing that I'm interested in. Big Jake also says about Russell Wilson will shine with the Steelers. He's gotten a bad rap for whatever reason. He will show folks that he's not washed up yet. Now, I agree that I think that Russell Wilson is not washed up just yet. He does need to be in a situation where You understand what Russell Wilson is. You understand what Russell Wilson does, how he plays football. It's a little backyard style. It's a little bit of, I'm going to hold on to the football a little longer than you'd like so that I'll give up a good play to hopefully get a great play. And he's done that for years. And he's made a name and a career for himself off of that. However, Justin Fields is rolling right now. And like the locker room is behind him. You could take that away from him, but you do run the risk there, Big Jake, of maybe rattling some things that don't need to be rattled. Wilson will come in and shine with the Steelers. His game is perfect for the way they play. Run the ball, play action deep over the top. He throws one of the best deep balls ever. Justin doesn't give you that deep threat at all. Right now, he doesn't give you that. The arm is there. You watched Ohio State, Justin Fields. You know the arm is there. The question is mentally, can he do it? And, they're trying to bring him along slowly enough that he gets to that point. They played him earlier than they wanted to, but the thing is, Justin Fields is winning football games. Pinocchio says, dude, did Bledsoe get the job back from Brady? And no, he didn't. I'm not saying that Russell Wilson should. But it's a conversation that is happening in Pittsburgh if the reports are to be believed right now. That it's happening. Okay? It's not me. You're going to have to send that text to Mike Tomlin, Pinocchio, somehow. I don't know how you're going to get it to him, but that is the conversation that's being had. And I don't know that this is also a Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady type situation necessarily, though it does kind of work out that way in some way or another. Beer Bob says, I see the Steelers going towards Russell Wilson just because of for the business end. If Fields plays more than I think 51% of the snaps, the draft pick gets moved up from like a 6th rounder to a 3rd. So maybe a 2nd going to the Bears. So yeah, there's also a little bit of working the draft in this too. If you think that you can keep a high round draft pick, and I would say the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd rounds qualify as high round draft picks, because those are guys when you draft them, if you hit on those picks, you expect those guys to be starters, and you usually expect them to be starters right away. 2nd rounders, 3rd rounders starting on NFL teams as rookies, like that's not uncommon at all. You're usually asking those guys to play on a certain level. And I do think that you don't want to give those picks up. So maybe that's just the reason. Maybe you purely go with Russell Wilson on that at a certain point. Average Joe says, I think the Steelers didn't see it in Fields during camp and were going with Russ as a default. From what I read and followed during camp, neither one was good. And I read that too. Like they both looked pretty bad. And the Steelers were doing we've got 2 great quarterbacks, which you know what that means when they say you got 2 great quarterbacks. You actually have no quarterbacks, because if you had a guy that was great, you'd have one of them starting. You don't have 2 great quarterbacks generally. He also goes on to say, from what I read and followed during camp, neither one was good. I keep Fields until he has a bad game, and then you insert Russ for a game to show how he's not any better. Again, Average Joe, I think you're making a lot of sense. The Steelers appear to be having different thoughts about how this is going to work. And that's the reason why I want to know what you guys are thinking. Because I like the Justin Fields Steelers. And I am the kind of person, I generally would prefer a team roll with the hot hand. Roll with the guy that's actually getting it done. And that would be Justin Fields right now. And yeah, if Justin Fields shows you, not on paper, but in real life, in reality, on the field, if he shows you that he can go out there and get it done, or if he shows you actually this was all a fraud, Justin Fields is turned back into a pumpkin, the clock struck midnight, then you go with Russell Wilson, you don't look back. But I just think that the guy is showing you what he can do. And these aren't impressive, explosive victories, but he's doing enough to win. And he's doing exactly what the coaches want him to do, which you have to think in a locker room where you're doing this on merit has to be rewarded on some level. The Moist One says, Oregon got an onside kick and didn't turn the ball over. Ohio State lost a fumble too. Oregon played a clean game. Not going to discount them saying they didn't deserve to win. I don't think that just because they weren't the better team on the field, quote unquote, that they didn't deserve to win. They 100% deserved to win. They did all the things that you need to do to win. They executed better. And that's what it comes down to a lot of the time. Oregon executed better. Guess what that means? You deserve to win. Your quarterback didn't let the clock run out while he was trying to get extra field position. You deserve to win. You understood the rule book and you made the right adjustments. You did that 12th man rule. You did it. You induced the penalty on purpose, knowing it would run off the clock. You deserve to win. All of those little things are the difference between winning and losing when two top 5 programs play each other. That's the difference. And that's the reason why I'm coming at Ryan Day a little bit. I'm going at him a little because at 2-6 in these games, there are details you're clearly missing. Because if you're this, I mean, look, they're tough teams, they're tough opponents, but you expect the premier coaches in this sport to be able to win the premier matchups when they happen, or at least look competitive in it. And every single time Ryan Day is in one of these, it never ends with a win, seemingly. Seemingly, because clearly it's ended with 2. Latina Leprechaun says, if I had to choose between Russie and Jussie, I'd pick Jussie based on what I've seen so far this season. Yeah, I'd take Justin too. I just think that that's where you're going. And look, Mike Tomlin is going to make the decision that he wants to make. And if Mike Tomlin says Russell Wilson on Sunday, like that locker room's going to follow him. He's more than earned it with those guys. Big Jake saying, obviously, Tomlin likes Wilson, and I trust his judgment. So, yeah, I mean, look, he's the coach. He's going to make that final call. I think that they should stick with Justin Fields, but I don't think it's crazy that they are going to go with Russell Wilson, just because there is a pedigree there. And before we had the break, one last text from Kiss the Cook. What did you think? What did I think about the Steelers? They suck. I don't care who they have at QB. I mean, do you believe, Kiss the Cook, that a team is what their record says they are? Because if you believe a team is what their record says they are, and I believe that, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 4-2, which you may not like them. You may not think that that is a team that can win a championship. Guess what? I don't either. But they certainly don't suck. They're tied on top of the AFC North with the Baltimore Ravens. They have gone out every single week and showed you that defense is hell to play against. They've got the Jets coming up, which we'll see how much Devontae Adams helps the Jets. But that's a defense that's going to make things very, very difficult. And if the game is close, who do you trust more with the ball in their hands to make sure that you're led to a victory? Justin Fields, not Bears Justin Fields. Justin Fields, the way that he's playing this year, or Russell Wilson, again, the way that he's played lately, more so than not. That's the question that the Steelers have to ask, and that's the question I'm asking you on the text line, 888-368-1580. We'll get back to the rest of your texts because I see the rest of them flowing in right here on the Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
Hey, sports bettors, Jeffrey O'Brien here to tell you about my favorite sportsbook and casino, and that is BetUS.com. Football's back, so it's time to get in on the action. I endorse one sportsbook and casino, and that is BetUS. If you want a game plan to win this season, then check out BetUS. BetUS went large for you this season with a huge offer, a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. That's right, a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. BetUS offers value other sportsbooks simply don't offer. Gamblers insurance, crypto bonuses, and casino bonuses. Plus, they have all the products you need. Competitive odds, parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and prop betting. When you're ready to lay down your bet, give your bet an edge. Why not combine your sign-up bonus with knowledge? Get that knowledge with expert analysis, picks, and predictions on all major sports on their very own BetUS TV. Get started today at BetUS.com or give them a call at 1-800-MY-BetUS. BetUS, where the game begins.
4 years. That's how long it took Democrats to ruin our economy and plunge our southern border into anarchy. Who helped them hurt us? Ruben Gallego. Washington could have cut taxes for Arizona families, but Ruben blocked the bill. And his fellow Democrats gave a bigger break to the millionaire class in California and New York. They played favorites and cost us billions. And Ruben wasn't done yet. Democrats could have secured the border. Instead, they invited an invasion and used our tax dollars to pay for it. Ruben Gallego even backed the law to let them vote in our elections. Don't give Gallego and the Democrats another 4 years to hurt us. Give your support to a real Arizona leader, Kari Lake. Kari and the Republicans will secure the border, support our families, and never turn their backs on us. Kari Lake for Senate.
I'm Kari Lake, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Kari Lake for Senate and the NRSC.
I'm still going for it, even with higher stroke risk from atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Over a 3-year study, Eliquis apixaban tablets reduced stroke risk better than warfarin, and over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke. A first stroke occurred in 2.9% of warfarin patients versus 2.3% of Eliquis patients.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without asking your doctor. It may increase your stroke risk. Eliquis can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. Medications such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners may increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
The most important event in sports could happen at any time.
Like right now.
Or right now. Or even
now.
Don't miss history. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or at 1580thefanatic.com.
So I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of these NFL storylines, because there's a bunch of them. A lot of interesting games on the slate this Sunday. And then Seabass sent me a text. And he said, did you see the latest chess cheating scandal? A chess grandmaster gets disqualified from the Spanish championships for using his phone to give him moves while he's taking a dump on the toilet. So thank you, Seabass. Because I do like chess. I play a little bit, not well. I have a friend that I play her, and then she kicks my ass every week, and that's our weekly ritual. And I have never beaten her. I got very close one time, that she's way too good. But I do enjoy chess, and no, I have not seen this particular scandal. And it's interesting only because it's kind of the only way you can cheat in chess is on a bathroom break, relieving yourself. When else would you be allowed to do that? The question is, if he went to the bathroom to cheat, then he didn't actually go to the bathroom to do any business. He went to the bathroom to cheat. Now, if he was doing his business and it occurred to him that he could in fact cheat, then I have a whole slew of other questions, like, well, why didn't it ever occur to you before that you could cheat in this way? That's incredibly silly to me. Chess is not a sport. We don't really talk about it on this show, but I play a little, so that did pique my interest a little bit. Seabass, thank you very much for sending that over. So that's the storyline that's been on my mind right now. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, but that's not the only one going on. This particular NFL weekend, we have some really, really good games. And I think we're about to discover some things about the Minnesota Vikings, because they're taking on the Detroit Lions on Sunday, 10 a.m. It's on Fox. The Vikings are at home, and they are a home favorite at 1.5. And the Vikings have been electric. When you look at the wins that they have this season, it's not against scrub teams. They played the Giants, which, first of all, the Giants are bad. I'm not going to act like they're good. They're secretly a good team. They are terrible. However, that defense is legit. The Giants have managed to be one of the better defenses in the entire NFL. They've got a top 10 defense in terms of yards allowed anyway. They've got a top 10 defense. Vikings put 28 points on them, which I don't know if you saw the Bengals try to play the Giants. Gugh. That's not easy to do. Then they played the Niners, and I know that the Niners are going through everything the Niners are going through, but that's still a really good football team, in my opinion. Then they get the Texans, also a good football team. They beat them. Then they get the Packers, also a good football team. They beat them. Then they get the Jets. The Jets are at least a solid team. And they got a pretty good fight from the Jets in the second half of that game. Not so much the first half, because that's just typically how things tend to go with Nathaniel Hackett offenses. First half tends to be a little slow, maybe too slow, which is why that guy no longer has a job in New York running that particular offense. And they're going up against the Detroit Lions, who really don't care about who you've beaten and who you've scored on. The Lions are going to put up points, and your defense, and this is a great Vikings defense, but it's not a Vikings defense that is impossible to move the football on. Even in the wins that the Vikings have had, the Vikings have given up 29 points to the Packers in the second half of a game they should have put away. They let the Jets come back on them a little bit when they were playing in London. That game should have been put away. So it's not like this is a Vikings defense that's so great that no one can move the football on them, nobody can score on them, but they do make life very difficult for teams. But I look at the Lions and I think, boy, that team's got a lot of weapons. They got a lot of weapons. Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. There are a lot of weapons on that Lions team. This is about to be, I think, the first real test for the Vikings of going up against an offense with weapons all over the yard. And I do think that when it comes to the Lions, this is kind of a much better defensive test for them too. Because the toughest defensive team they've played is Tampa in week 2. Yeah, you can move the ball on Tampa. Tampa's a very, very good team. And Dylan from Beat the Book, my co-host, joins the show. But before we bring in here, Dylan, I'm just wrapping up this point, tying things together. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a defense that can absolutely be scored on. We've seen it happen multiple times. These guys lost to the Broncos, and that offense, Sean Payton was able to scheme it up and figure it out. So it can be figured out. And Ben Johnson, is a fantastic offensive coach, and you could see what he was doing, the disrespect that he was doing against the Cowboys. This is a Lions team that should feel confident, that should feel like they're rolling. But this is going to be genuinely the toughest defense they've played so far this year. And I'm interested in this game in large part because of what it's going to prove about either team. Not necessarily a win or loss thing, just so much as, can the Lions offense continue to put 40 points on people? Because that's back-to-back 40-point games for the Lions, who, by the way, had a bye week in between those 40-point games, and it didn't seem to slow them down one bit. Or is it possible that the Minnesota Vikings and that defense, that vaunted defense, can actually be taken apart by a team with as many weapons as the Detroit Lions? I don't think it's going to prove that the Vikings are frauds or anything like that. But that is a Lions offense that has so many toys to play with. And Ben Johnson, I think we saw it on Sunday, he's not opposed to using all of them. This matchup might be the best matchup of the entire weekend. Bullseye says, can you explain to me why we now got Las Vegas Golden Knights and Utah Hockey Club games on local TV? I'm not going to lie to you, Bullseye. I was not aware of this. This is frustrating and infuriating. I hear even the Colorado Avalanche want in on the Phoenix TV market. Can't we just get our old team back? I miss the Coyotes. Dylan, this is probably closer to your heart than mine as a guy who's grown up here, lived here your entire life. Were you aware of this?
I was not aware of it, and we will not just all of a sudden, throw our loyalties to some other state's team. That's not how, fanhood, works. So yeah, no, we are all holding out for whatever team is hopefully going to replace the Coyotes.
Hopefully also called the Coyotes, because the name is still theirs to have.
I'm just a little afraid that we might turn into like the Seattle Supersonics of the NHL,
And then everyone goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. Basketball will return
It's
to
coming.
Seattle."
It's coming.
And then 5 years turns into 10, and 10 years turns into 15.
And there's like,
and then,
a whole new arena gets built, and they'll still say, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
And then
it never actually gets there. Yeah, I hope that that's not the case either. Wow, Bullseye, that's very hurtful. I actually don't like that at all. And I think that that's crass. I mean, good Lord, the team is still warm. We haven't even mourned them yet. And apparently I am meant to believe that Colorado wants us to root for them. Get out of here.
You know what's like even more frustrating about that, to me at least? Like, if you're Utah and you're going to prepare to, and I guess to frame it as them poaching the team isn't quite right, but at least have a team name ready to go. I can't stand this Utah Hockey Club. Yeah. I mean, how did you like Washington Football Club?
I mean, I like that, but that's a team that had a very complicated history with its name. But it was the same team. This is a brand new team going to a brand new city, and you couldn't think of anything about Utah that could be a good name.
Like, just pick something. I mean, it's not. I don't understand where this school of thought came in, where it was like, you know what, let's take our time on this. We got to be really thoughtful. We'll just go like 1 year of Utah Hockey Club, and whatever damage that might do to our brand, we'll just overcome it. It's no big deal. And you're right. I mean, the Washington situation, it's completely different.
It's a little bit more complicated there. But if I was a fan of a new team, like the people of Vegas and the Golden Knights, they were excited because the Golden Knights were coming.
And they hit the ground running.
Yeah. Not the Las Vegas Hockey Club. It's hard to get people in the building for that when they have no connection to the team. There's no history. These team colors don't mean anything to you yet. There's no great player to think back to when you're like, okay, I'm sure I'm watching the Washington football team, but not me, but fans older than me could think back and go, yeah, I remember when Art Monk played here, and these are still the same colors, and I can still get behind this. You don't have that in Utah with this team. Disgusting. Makes me mad. I already derailed myself for my football thing with that Bullseye, but I appreciate the text. Random Texter also says the Russell-Justin debate. You bring Russell in, he loses. How long do you let him go before Justin Fields is back? And that's the thing. Do you want to start a quarterback carousel you didn't have to start? You've already got the guy who's winning games as the starter. All you have to do is wait for Justin to lose one of them and then make up whatever excuse you want. The guy that's winning, that was a big win for Justin last week. He's kind of got the locker room. It's just going to be an interesting choice. Hefty Lefty says, if you like hockey, just be glad there's hockey. I'll finish the rest of that text on the other side.
Sports betting apps are not created equal. Dylan Cohen from Beat the Book here to talk about the Sport Trade advantage. With higher payouts, Sport Trade is the ultimate sports betting experience. Sport Trade is the first sports betting app that gives you the option to see the odds expressed as probabilities, and it's changing in-game betting forever. If it's easier to understand 52% probability of winning versus minus 108 odds, then Sport Trade is for you. With this percent odds feature, cashing out now makes much more sense. As the win probability changes, so does the value of your bet. And if you're an experienced bettor and prefer American odds, you'll get pricing closer to minus 106 versus the normal minus 110, coupled with instant in-play betting. No more spinny wheels. So download Sport Trade today to see the difference and beat the book. Use promo code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet you place in your first week. Terms apply.
Sport Trade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies, including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens. And it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to GoodRx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
Did you know that Wendy's has any size soft drinks for just $1? Yeah, any size, anytime. Like $1 Coke, $1 Sprite, or even $1 strawberry Fanta. Okay, could we maybe switch up the sound effect, please? 'Cause I'm losing it. Wow, no, not that. Any size soft drink for just $1? Gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. A la carte only. Not valid in a combo. Exclusions apply.
Direct savings and client focus, the cornerstones of the Diamond Dave philosophy.
Hi, I'm Diamond Dave Cantor. My team and I at Desert Wholesale Diamond can be your trusted friends with an inside scoop on the diamond world.
Just like they are to thousands of people around the world.
And just like we have been for over 34 years.
At Diamond Dave's, it's all about the diamonds and the savings, not paying for high-end retail locations or the overhead of a mall.
You stand to save big time with our by appointment professional office approach combined with direct importing.
When you choose Diamond Dave's, you choose huge savings, top quality, and excellent service. Call, email, or message us for an in-person appointment.
Or sit back and relax for free FedEx shipping anywhere in the USA.
Call Diamond Dave at 480-397-2450. That's 480-397-2450. Or follow him on Instagram at Diamond Dave Cantor. That's at Diamond Dave, Kantor.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM.
All right, people, settle down.
Because it's time.
Time for what?
Showtime.
When does it start?
Right now. 3, 2, 1.
Let's get on with the show. Let's do it.
Welcome back to the Daily Blender, hour number 2. I'm Keon Rose, and I'm joined by my Beat the Book co-host, Dylan Cohen. And, boy, show's flying along here, and we got some news about hockey. And I did not expect this to be a particularly divisive thing to bring up. Seabass, was it Seabass that sent that? No, sorry, that was Bullseye that sent in the text about how the Las Vegas Golden Knights are showing up on local TV, and so are the Colorado Avalanche, and Utah also trying to show up on local TV, that's the most insulting one of all of them. And Hefty Lefty, who I'm assuming is a big hockey fan here based on this text, says, if you like hockey, just be glad there's hockey to watch on local channels. You don't have to change allegiances. You know, be like the Sonics fans and just hate everybody. Give you many more teams to root against. Yeah, I mean, look, if you love hockey, watch the hockey. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch the games. I am not calling for a boycott of games here. But if you're a fan of the team, you know, which there are people who like hockey, and then there are people who like their team. Because hockey is a sport that they like because their team plays it, and then they have no team. I don't know what they're watching. You know, I'm that way with hockey. Hockey is, I think, pretty easily my weakest sport. It's the sport I know the least about. You know, I have very little experience playing it. I lived in DC for a little bit, so kids did play it out there, but it wasn't like, you know, that popular where I was. You know, mostly it was of all the kids in the DMV, that we called it, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. It was mostly the Virginia kids that played hockey. You know, all the DC kids, we played basketball. We played football. So like that, we weren't really that big in hockey. I am a big Caps fan, but if the Caps disappeared tomorrow, it would be much harder for me to follow hockey because that's just my team. And look, win, lose, or draw, I watch them, I root for them, but it gets a little tougher to kind of lock in on that team or lock in on the league when the reason you were following the league was your team and your team is no longer gone. But if you're somebody like how I am with basketball, where I'll just watch basketball, whatever, the Wizards disappear tomorrow. Okay, maybe that's not the best example. The Wizards disappearing tomorrow might be not even distinguishable from the Wizards as they currently exist. But if the Wizards were good and disappeared tomorrow, I would still watch a lot of basketball because that would be really fun and really enjoyable for me to watch just because of all the players and the storylines and all of that, which brings us to the thing that we're going to do next, because Dylan sent me a very good email that included a list of hold on, I got to refresh the thing. There it is. A list of ESPN's ranked players. They ranked the best players in the league from 50 to 11 We're not going to go through all of this one by one. I don't think there's any point. But Dylan, like if there's a player that stands out to you on this list, I think it would be interesting. Because when I looked at the list, I right off the bat, number 50, LaMelo Ball, I am already fascinated by everything about the story of LaMelo Ball, the injury, the team not being particularly great, the fact that he's a horrible defender, but he might be one of the best scorers in the league.
So this is
what if I turn on your mic?
Yeah, I was gonna say that probably help.
That'd help a little.
This is the NBA rank from ESPN, and they basically go through the top 100 players, in the NBA, rank them, and I mean it's always going to be something that is a great topic of conversation. No one's going to agree, very very subjective, thing to do. So they already put out 51 through 100, and now they're focusing on the upper half of it. So we get 50 to 11 right now, and then they're going to go through the top 10 over the course of, I think, the rest of this week. So there were a few things that stood out to me in this. Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns, he was ranked as the 15th best player in the NBA. And in last year's edition of the NBA rank, he was number 11. So he's got pushed back a little bit.
Okay, and since this list happens to go from 50 to 11, who are the 4 people who have basically pushed him back down to 15?
Number 14 is Jaylen Brown. And it's kind of hard to argue against that, just considering the success the Celtics had.
Yeah,
Jaylen Brown's
they won
reigning
the title.
finals MVP.
Yeah, he was clearly the best player on that team in the finals. Fair.
Number 13, Anthony Davis. And that's also kind of another one where it's like,
you can argue with the numbers, and like the injury stuff was not as serious last year. He stayed healthy for the most part for him. He stayed very healthy last year. And so like if Anthony Davis is healthy,
he deserves
there's at least an argument to be made that Anthony Davis, you could rank him higher. I'm sure that there are Suns fans who are not going to be thrilled to hear this on the text line because I already see it blowing up.
Number 12, and this is one where I'm struggling with it for some different reasons here. Jalen Brunson, number 12, and I don't want to take anything away from Jalen because I think he is a phenomenal player,
and people hate on him enough for how good he is. He doesn't deserve, I think, a lot of the hate that he gets, but that is part of being in the New York market.
Well, and I happened to be at the one game that the Knicks played here in Phoenix last season, and that was a game where Jalen Brunson had like 50 points off like 9 of 9 3-point shooting. So, I mean, does the guy have the capability to just absolutely heat up and just be a force? Of course he does. We saw it in the playoffs up until he broke his hand in Game 7 against the Pacers. It looked like he was going to lead the Knicks all the way into the Eastern Conference Finals. It didn't really pan out that way. I guess the part about this I struggle with compared to Booker is just that, the Knicks have now brought in some more talent on that team, and that talent is going to help make the team better. But is Jalen Brunson going to really kind of piece together the type of season that he had last year? And now he's got to, share the ball with Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges. These are guys that are going to put up a lot of points. So, when you're trying to project what kind of a season Jalen's going to have, I think the Knicks are going to have a great season. I think Jalen's going to play well, but I mean, is he going to really stack up to Devin Booker, who, at age 27 is really, emerging into the absolute, prime of his career, and particularly with the things the Suns have done to set themselves up for success. I struggle with that one a little bit. And the other piece to that too is just that, yes, Jalen was top 5 in MVP voting. He was all NBA, but he still didn't get his team past the semifinals. I mean, Devin Booker has accomplished more in the NBA so far than Jalen Brunson has. So I looked at that one and I was like, I don't know about that. Now
that does get the eyebrow raise.
Number 11 is going to be.
I will say when I put the Devin Booker and Jalen Brunson in the basketball reference comparison tool, because I'm a nerd, I do this all day. And just last season, just the stats from last season, scoring goes to Brunson. Just about everything else goes Booker's way. Rebounds, assists, which I was actually surprised to see, barely 6.9 for Booker versus 6.7 for Brunson. They're actually tied in steals, so 0.9 steals a game. Booker's got more blocks. His field goal percentage is higher, though not from three. Brunson's got him beat there. Better from the free throw line, Devin Booker. Effective field goal percentage, better for Devin Booker. He's better in just about every way, and they were 1-1 matched up last year.
Well, and then
So
the
they're
Suns are
really
playing in
close.
the West. You know, the West is more competitive than the East.
And so I do bristle at Brunson from that standpoint.
So, I mean, that was one where I was kind of like, really? Okay.
Yeah, like you almost accept it, but you're like, yeah, sure. Who had more playoff success? But if we're just talking about who was the better player on the court last season, statistically anyway, it was Devin Booker.
One of those guys got picked to go play for Team USA. The other one didn't. You know, one of those guys had a really, big role in Team USA's success. And I know this is kind of a random thing to throw out there. Is Jalen Brunson going to be a part of Team USA for the next go around? That's what I'm assuming. But just with where they are in their careers right now, you know, Booker being a little bit older, I just feel like he's
like
probably ahead of Brunson at this point.
There's an argument to be made for Brunson, but I wouldn't make it. I think that Devin Booker is better than Jalen Brunson, and I would argue that more than I would Anthony Davis.
Number 11 is where it really starts to get okay. Like you're going to have some very strong opinions one way or some strong opinions the other.
No.
Number 11 is Victor Wembanyama on the San Antonio Spurs. In 2023, he was ranked as the 47th best player in the NBA before he ever played a single game in the league. And now, after 1 year, he has shot up 36 spots to get to number 11.
And I understand that some of this is projection, so I'm going to be kind of nice about it, nicer than it deserves. This ranking, but come on, man. If I were not tasked with running this here radio show, I would get up and walk out. That is absurd to me. And I understand all of the things with Wemby and all of the hype and all of the things that we expect from him. But I'd like to see him do it first. Like he had a reduced workload last year. I think he's going to have more, obviously, under his belt this year. They're going to play him more. But it's the Spurs we're talking about. I don't think they're going to completely unleash Victor Wembanyama on the league yet. Now, if they do, I'll give it up. I'll concede it, because I think if they do, like, he's going to put up stupid numbers and it's going to look ridiculous. And you know, even though he's only a second-year player, it's going to be hard to argue at the end of the season that that's not a top 15 guy.
To me, a big part of him being placed where he's at has to do with Chris Paul. And if the Spurs did not go out of their way to get Chris Paul, then I don't think the projection would be as extreme. But this is just acknowledging the potential that pairing has and what Chris Paul could ultimately do to boost Wemby's game. So,
which we saw what he did with Ayton, and we think Ayton is lazy. We think that he doesn't do all of the things that he can do to get the full potential, get his full talent out there on the court. Victor Wembanyama does all of those things. In fact, he said recently, very, very point blank, by the way, just bluntly, he just said there are some guys in the league that I really looked up to growing up. I don't have respect for them anymore because they don't work as hard as I thought they did.
Wow.
He didn't name anybody. He didn't point any fingers, but he was just like, yeah, they're just guys that don't work very hard. And I thought they did for what their games were and how talented they are. I thought they put in that work. So if we think that DeAndre Ayton got his game elevated by Chris Paul, and I do, then what happens when you pair him with a guy like Victor Wembanyama, who's much more talented, if we're honest, and a much harder worker? What do you do then?
I mean, we're just going to have to wait and see.
Besides watch the Spurs just kill people.
And that's where, you know, the Spurs, like in general, it's so hard to pinpoint, to me at least, like what kind of a season they'll have, because it could just go multiple ways. I mean, they could be one of these teams that does see value in kind of kicking this season to the curb and chasing after Cooper Flag, or, you know, Wemby and Chris Paul is just dynamite together, And then Chris Paul's also, teaching Stephon Castle in the background and perhaps
Yeah.
brings him up to speed throughout the course of the season.
Look, I'm not that big in how the NBA lottery is rigged and all of that stuff because I just don't have any evidence to prove that, and I like to have proof before I accuse people of things. But man, F the Spurs. That has to be the luckiest organization in the history of sports if in fact they are not helped by the NBA, which, given their market size, why would they be? Like, wouldn't you help the Knicks? that would be the team that you would really want to help. But regardless, sure. I'm just disgusted at the luck that organization has had over the last 20, 30 years.
I mean, I remember when the Suns won the lottery in 2018, and that just felt like the most, amazing, luckiest thing, ever. And just because you get that number one pick doesn't mean you're going to bring in that generational guy that's going to just change the entire future of the franchise. So the Spurs absolutely won the biggest NBA lottery ever.
Yeah, I mean, at least since the Knicks won Ewing.
I mean, do you remember David Griffin freaking out when they won the lottery and Zion was the guy coming in, and Zion, for good reason, was expected to be, just life-changing, and Zion just hasn't been able to keep himself healthy enough to see it come, to fruition there. There's actually one other name on this list, Keon, that I find more appalling than anything that we've talked about so far.
God. Okay.
You got to scroll up a bit more.
All right.
Number 32, Chet Holmgren. Last season, he was ranked 73. So he's getting a bigger boost than technically Wemby's getting. And if you look at some of these names that are ranked just above him, like I look at this, I'm like, what the hell? Number 33, Lauri Markkanen. Number 34, Rudy Gobert. Number 35, Scotty Barnes. 36, Jrue Holiday. 37, Trae Young. 38, Mikal Bridges. 39, Derek White.
And they have Chet above all these guys.
And that's like every single name I've read off so far. I'm like, Chet is not deserving enough to be ahead of them.
There is nobody on the text line that is making me more angry than what this list is doing to me. Where is he? What spot did he wind up at?
32.
30. I'm going to buy a ladder so that I can climb it and hit the roof. What? I like Chet. This is the thing. This is my problem with some of these lists. There are players I genuinely like that I now have to just badmouth because they're just not ranked properly. There is no universe in which I think that currently, because that's what we're talking about, this upcoming season, these players as we know them now, that Chet Holmgren is more valuable and better than Jrue Holiday. None. The Celtics do not win that title without him.
Lauri Markkanen right now, and it's kind of hard to compare.
Yeah, Markkanen's crazy good.
Right.
Markkanen just went bananas last season.
Scotty Barnes,
even Scotty, even Rudy.
Yeah.
Just because Rudy anchors a defense. I mean, he had his underachieving moments on the offensive side of the ball, but Rudy Gobert is genuinely an eraser on the defensive end of the floor. This is crazy. Let's get to the text line here because maybe some of you agree with me. I don't know. Hefty Lefty says, I'm not a huge hockey fan, but I do enjoy it when it's on. I also have never lost my team that I root for, so I don't know how Coyotes fans are feeling. Was just giving them an option for channeling their hatred. No, I 100% understand. I don't know that feeling either, but I can also understand where, like, if you're mad and you don't want to watch another hockey team and you're bitter about it, it's like, you're watching hockey, you're watching your team, and then all of a sudden your team gets taken away, and then they have the gall to turn around and put your team back on TV for you to watch in a different uniform, different jersey, different fan base, different city. That is the equivalence of breaking up with somebody and then having that person just go on and be like a rock star or something. Like it's just happening somewhere else and you don't want to see it.
I actually did a little bit of research on the whole situation because I'm just kind of like, what the hell is going on here? So I think part of this was just sort of the very fast timeline of, the Coyotes, falling apart and moving to Utah, where, the TV agreements were probably still somewhat in place. And then now, that's all changing because your team is literally changing markets. So to fill the void of what was supposed to be on TV, Arizona 61, which is like the local network that, comes in as like ABC, local Phoenix news, or, that's just how they brand it. To fill the void, they made these agreements with Script Sports. And what that's turned into is a collection of Vegas Golden Knight games and Utah Hockey Club games that are getting broadcasted here in Phoenix. So I think it was more, it's not so much these teams like going, oh, let's capture some more market share.
Yeah.
It was kind of just more like, hey, we were supposed to have something airing at this time. Now we technically, don't have it. So like we need something. So, NHL, help us out here.
I refuse to watch the Utah Hockey Club. I simply refuse. I'll watch if the Avalanche are on, the Golden Knights are on. All right, cool. I guess I'll watch that. The Utah Hockey Club, I'm not going to watch them in their boring ass uniforms and their boring ass team name. That they got the team. Good for them. I'm done. I'm not watching any of that. But I appreciate that hefty lefty. Big George says a top 100 of the best NBA players sounds like something we should do every day for the next 100 days. The NBA season starts in far, far less than 100 days, Big George. We should have planned this like 70 days ago if we were going to do it like that. But no, because these lists kind of get a little bit silly. I think you'd get tired of it faster than you think, which is why we didn't go down the whole list. Harry Soap says, "What channel will we be soon seeing the Seattle Kraken on here in Phoenix?" I don't know. I'd
rather watch them than Utah.
Yes, 100%. And somehow I don't think that's going to work out for us. Hamilton Porter says we need to be nicer to kids this time of year. If there are people that think that the Cardinals can go to the playoffs, then why can't they believe in Santa Claus? We weren't even talking about the Cardinals, Hamilton Porter. Where did that come from?
I'm sure there's believers out there, but
there have to be believers. And
they
all
don't
I'm
work
going to
for
say
CRC Broadcasting.
is take all of your belief and put it with the ASU Sun Devils, because I promise you it makes infinitely more sense over there. Big Jake says Zion is going to have a monster year. I actually agree. I thought his injury in the playoffs was actually more freak injury than any of his other injuries. I genuinely believe that. He also says Chet is going to kill this year. How about Beal dropping to number 70 on the list, huh? Well, I happen to think that that's kind of that's a good spot for him. It makes sense.
I didn't hate it. I mean, it's more reflective of just the kind of year that he had last year.
Yeah, it's just how he's been lately. And if you're projecting that into this year, then do you think that he's going to improve, and by how much? I think if you start the year believing he is the 70th best player, and I say this as a Wizards fan who had Bradley Beal on my team for a long time. I like the guy a lot. I think 70s are about where I'd probably have him too if I sat down and really did this myself. Bat Flipper says Brunson is a beast. Stop hating. Suns got to the finals because Davis was hurt. Victor's better too. Stupid numbers like Keon said. Chet's good. Nobody you said is better than him. When is the last time anybody you said did anything? When was the last time Lauri Markkanen did anything? Literally last year, Bat Flipper. When was the last time that Drew Holiday did anything? He only won a championship last year.
And a gold medal this summer.
Yeah, what conversation are we having, sir? He's also saying Young is good, but his numbers are good, not his record. Go Suns. Yeah, and by the way, I wasn't hating on Brunson. I'm saying of all the people ranked between 15, where Devin Booker is, and 11, where Devin Booker was ranked, that's the argument I would have the strongest, because the numbers, these are not advanced stats, okay? I didn't go and pull up some of the advanced analytics. All I pulled up was rebounds per game, which is a valuable thing on a court. I pulled up assists per game. Jalen Brunson's a point guard. Devin Booker is not. He should probably not be leading in that particular statistical category. Devin Booker has a higher field goal percentage. Both of these guys shoot.
Also, what kind of production do you guys think Chet Holmgren's going to have with Isaiah Hartenstein, part of that starting five now? He's not the only 7-footer, sharing, the ball. So
I like Chet, which is why I said already when they made this list, they're going to make me say bad things about players that I like. Because I'm not hating on Chet, and I'm not hating on Jalen. but I don't think that Chet is that much better than Drew Holiday. I don't. I'm sorry.
DeJounte Murray, number 43. Like, that's another guy where I would put him above Chet Holmgren. Jalen Williams, 44. To be honest, I think Jalen Williams is the second best player on the Thunder. It's not Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, I agree with that. On a night-to-night basis, when you need buckets. And again, see, I don't want to slander Chet. I don't want to say that Chet's not a great player. I don't want to say that Chet's not important to that team.
Did Derek Lively outplay Chet Holmgren in the NBA playoffs? I'm pretty sure he did.
I would have to go back and watch it.
And
I don't
Daniel
remember.
Gafford,
Gafford did though.
Well, and that's where, look, if you're getting upstaged by those two guys, you're not number 32 on this list.
Yeah. Now, even if you're projecting the guy 40 spots higher based on that. Okay. Look, I would like him to prove me wrong. Slow Mo Zo says, as a Houston Oilers fan, I can tell you it sucks. Yeah, to have your team go. I mean, yeah, Oilers fans know, Supersonics fans know. There's a lot of fans who would truly understand this. So we've got a number of texts on the text line. I do not have time to get to them, and we are so late for a break. So we're going to go. We're going to come back, and we're going to get to you, Whistling Gerbil, Beer Bob, Pinocchio, Hamilton Porter, CK, Mr. Roboto, I haven't seen in a very long time. And Mr. Roboto has a very interesting text. I'm interested in getting to that one. It's more hockey stuff right here on the Daily Blender on 1580, The Fanatic.
Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win, breakaway, pick six, three-point shot, underdog win, buzzer beater, shootout, walk-off, and absolutely every play in between is amazing. From football to basketball and hockey to baseball, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Arizona.
I'm still going for it, even with higher stroke risk from atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Over a 3-year study, Eliquis apixaban tablets reduced stroke risk better than warfarin. And over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke. A first stroke occurred in 2.9% of warfarin patients versus 2.3% of Eliquis patients.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without asking your doctor. It may increase your stroke risk. Eliquis can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. Medications such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners may increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
Hi, guys. Jeffrey O'Brien here. Have you ever gone to HarmonSolar.com? Well, you really need to, because everything you ever wanted to know about how solar power can save you big on your monthly electric bill is right there. It's online. Through your phone or through your computer, you can learn about tax credits, the equipment they use, look at how they do things for businesses as well as homeowners, see testimonials from happy customers, and I hear they got a pretty good podcast, too. Check it out. Go to HarmonSolar.com. That's HarmonSolar.com.
Did you know that Wendy's has any size soft drinks for just $1? Yeah, any size, anytime. Like $1 Coke, $1 Sprite, or even $1 strawberry Fanta. Okay, could we maybe switch up the sound effect, please? I'm losing it. Wow, no, not that. Any size soft drink for just $1? Gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. A la carte only. Not valid in a combo. Exclusions apply.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Ken Barkley here, reminding you to check out You Better You Bet. Why, you ask? Well, because we bring the fun, the insight, and all the wagertainment you need. Plus, hopefully, we win a couple bets along the way. From up-to-the-minute breakdowns of backdoor covers, bad beats, and the cheers and tears that come with them, obviously. Plus, betting analysis from some of the best minds in the sports wagering world. Join myself and Nick Costos and tune into You Better You Bet. Weekdays from noon to 3 on Arizona's sports betting station 1580 and 99.3, The Fanatic.
So remember to turn on Dylan's mic this time. We are marching along in hour number 2, talking some NBA, the top 50 players in the league. And, well, it was a top 100 list, but we were on the part that was 50 to 11. And, There were a couple of Suns mentioned in the conversation. Bradley Beal, who was in the part of the list that was 100 to 51. Bradley Beal was 70th. There are a couple of texts about that, too. We got some Devin Booker text coming in. Whistling Gerbil says, "Go Knights, go." I didn't know you were a Vegas guy, Whistling Gerbil. That's cool. Beer Bob says, "It may be hard since..." Well, hold on. Let me see if I go back. Did I miss a text there? Potentially. No, I didn't. "It might be hard since we like the players, but it's hockey on free TV. So you could watch that stupid name team from Utah and root against them." That's true. I'm coming around to the side of rooting against the Utah Hockey Club, no matter what they do and no matter who they're playing. Except I have to make some ground rules personally because I cannot stand the New York Rangers and I do not like the Pittsburgh Penguins. So and that I root for an asteroid. I don't root for I don't root for them against the Utah Hockey Club. I'm sorry. I simply am not capable of doing it, especially the Pittsburgh Penguins. If you know, you know. Pinocchio says, "Beal was lucky to make the list. Nice guy, mid player." I disagree. I don't think that he's a top 50 player. Like I said, I think 70 is right around where I'd have him. But Bradley Beal shot more than 50% from the field last year on 14 shot attempts a night. It wasn't like he was shooting 2 or 3. He was shooting about 14, 15 shots a night. He was shooting 43% from 3. He was shooting 50% from the field. He was averaging 18, 19, nearly 20 points a game. That's not a mid player.
His rank really, really strongly depends on his health and his availability.
Yeah.
Like, coming off of last year, it was like, I mean, I don't want to say it was like weekly, but I can't tell you how many times I saw the dude just like roll his ankle. All of a sudden he's out for 2 weeks.
It did feel like that for a while. And he had those injury stuff in Washington, but it never felt like he was injured as much as he was here. He'd either have one of those like season enders and you're just like, all right, well, I guess we're done. Or he was healthy. Like this is like the little nagging stuff that you just can't seem to get over.
A lot of people forget that like just during the regular season, like the Suns didn't even get, I want to say it was like 17 regular season games of their big three all healthy together.
Yeah, I think they just barely beat that Nets team when they had Kyrie and Harden and Durant. They barely played more than that team. And actually similar results when they were all together healthy, which is that they won a lot of those games, just not in the playoffs. So that's the whole thing.
So and the point I'm trying to get to is that, the best version of Beal within the Suns system is when everyone's there on the court, when it changes and Booker's gone or Durant's gone.
But I wonder if that's going to be the case this year, because now that you've got Tyus Jones, and I really do think that he is the X factor of this team going into this season. Whenever one of those guys was gone, like Booker was playing a lot of point. When Booker was gone, Beal was playing point, and he shouldn't have been doing that either, to be honest with you. So if you're going to have a team where if Beal's out, Booker can still play his natural position, or if Booker's out, Beal can still play his natural position because the point guard position is actually taken care of. Do we get the best version of all of these guys, whether or not they're together? That is what I want to know. I think it's possible, though.
I definitely agree. I mean, look, if you have the fortune of having everyone there, then you're just putting more pressure on the other team's defense to make a decision. I mean, you can't double all of these guys. Someone is going to end up open, and that the benefactor of that this season is I'm thinking it's going to be Bradley Beal, as long as he's available and he can be there. But you are right, Keon. I mean, if there's ever a day where he's not going to go, then at least we've got the point guard spot covered.
Yeah.
And there's someone that can, get the ball around to Booker and to Durant. And, we probably won't miss a step the same way that we did, when the big three couldn't be together last season.
Yeah. Cause like you're not, when you missed one of those guys, you were missing your part-time point guard. And they were both part-time point guards. You didn't have one that was a regular guy doing that. So Hamilton Porter says, remember when the Suns won the lottery and then drafted DeAndre Ayton? Good times. And Hamilton Porter, it made sense at the time. Okay. It did make sense at the time. There were people who obviously thought, just Luka's the play here. Don't make this complicated. But it's not like they drafted DeAndre Ayton out of nowhere. I remember one time my team won the draft lottery and they drafted Kwame Brown. It can always be worse, okay? That's the point that I'm trying to get to.
Ouch.
Mr. Roboto says, I would name the team the Utah Dynamite with Kip and Uncle Rico as dual mascots. Or Kip and LaFonda. Mr. Roboto, what are you referencing right now? I'm missing something and I feel lost and it's giving me FOMO and I don't like missing out.
By the way, it was 41 total games last season of the big three all playing together. So it wasn't 17. I was off on that, but still only half a season. We haven't seen what this looks like for more than half a season. In those 41 games, Suns went 26-15.
Yeah. And again, that's with no real point guard and Frank Vogel's, in air quotes, offense. Like that's a huge factor in all of this, I think. Mr. Roboto says, by the way, it was the movie Napoleon Dynamite. It's heavily referencing Mormon culture. I saw Napoleon Dynamite like once when I was 17. I did not get it. And maybe that movie was just for somebody else. I just didn't get it. It didn't do anything for me because I didn't get any of the jokes. And it was awkward. It felt like just to be awkward. If you like it, you like it. I don't really tell people what to like and what not to like. It didn't do much for me personally.
My only takeaway from Napoleon Dynamite was vote for Pedro.
Vote for Pedro. Damn it. T-Licious says, not ready for NBA talk yet, but Booker should use this as motivation. But haters got one job. Let them do the MFing job. Thank you, T-Licious. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, like if you think you're a higher ranked player, you should go out there and show that to people. And I would say the same thing for guys like Jalen Brunson and Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren and guys that it feels like, we've gone after a little bit today. Look, if we're wrong, they'll show us on the court. I don't mind being wrong. I've done it before. I think I'll live. I think I'll handle it. CK says, good afternoon, fellas. Keon, beer me. Wow, I didn't even catch that. How long have you been waiting on that beer? There that is. And then he goes to add to my previous. Oh, sorry. He said, I missed the first 2 hours of Beat the Book, but I'm glad I could catch the third and fourth hours. Sir, this is the Daily Blender. How dare you? He also says to add to my previous text, my new hockey team is Vegas. Go Knights. Look, if you're adopting another hockey team, how can I blame you? Again, we talked about the Supersonics earlier. How long did that fan base wait and they still don't have a basketball team? How long did the Oilers fans that were just waiting around in Houston have to wait before the Texans showed up in, I believe, the year of our Lord, 2000? I mean, they had to wait a good long while before they had a football team back in Houston. I hope it's not as long a wait here in Phoenix, but just if you want to root for a team, if that's how you connect with the league, I'm not going to knock it if you decide you're going to go and root for another one of these teams. If you root for the Utah Hockey Club, you might be dead to me, but that's a different situation entirely. Boogie says Jackie Moon is top 10 for sure. He is. You kidding?
Legend. Player,
coach, owner. The fact that he's not number one, that might be the biggest crime, honestly.
Creator of the alley-oop.
I mean, it's historical significance. Jackie Moon, the Flint Tropics, of course. Whistling Gerbil says, I feel like the Suns' big three didn't play with each other until the playoffs. It does feel like that, but they did play. Like Dylan looked it up. They did play 41 games.
But those
together.
41 games are like so scattered. It's like, three here, then like 10 off, then another 5 here, then like 4 off. And then...
I can totally understand. And then there was like you'd get 2 weeks of Durant and Beal, and then Beal would get hurt. Then you get Booker back, and you'd get Booker and Durant, and then Booker would get hurt again. But then Beal wouldn't come back, so you had Durant alone for a little, and then Durant's gone. But it's okay because Beal's back now. Like it was a mess last year.
It was a rotating door.
So I can understand why it didn't feel like they played together until the playoffs, because as far as the continuity of all three of those guys together went, you didn't get all three of them together for, it felt like, more than a week or two, and then they'd be gone for a really long time. Hamilton Porter says, I mean, the Pistons won the lottery of the century and then drafted Darko Milicic,
the human cigar,
the human victory cigar, Darko Milicic. And it's so funny to me because I remember being a kid, and of course, like at that time, Joe Dumars was getting praised. Like he was considered like the best GM in basketball. And you put together a championship team, and it's Rip Hamilton, and it's Chauncey Billups, and it's Rasheed Wallace, and it's Big Ben. And you're like, wow, this guy's brilliant that he pulled all of these guys together and put together a championship team with like not really a superstar on it. Stars, all stars, like Billups, definitely big star, but like a superstar, they didn't really have one. So he says he goes to the Milicic workout and he goes, that's like life changing. Like that workout was insane. And drafts Darko, nobody questioned it because it was just like, well, if Joe Dumars wants to draft Darko, at that point, he could do no wrong. Joe Dumars hasn't worked in a front office like that ever again. Like that's how bad that pick was. He went from best GM in basketball to, I think he's in the league office now.
He literally handpicked like the one guy in that draft who was just not in love with the game of basketball. He just happened to be, 7 feet and
did have a really good shot.
I mean, he was good, but
yeah,
the guy that, almost kind of similar to Nikola Jokic in a way, in that like his passion was like farming. It was like it was being on the countryside. It wasn't about being a basketball player. Jokic enjoys basketball.
Yeah, Jokic enjoys basketball. And also the thing with Jokic is when he's on the floor, nothing on the planet is more important than beating a team. He may want his horses after. He may want to hang out with his kids after. But while he's on the floor, you don't have to question the passion of a Nikola Jokic. Darko just looked like he didn't even want to be there. In the middle of games, he looked like he didn't want to be there. That might be one of the worst draft picks ever. I pulled up Darko's stats because I just thought it was interesting. Darko,
well, and you're like
6 points a game for his entire career. My God,
like Joe Dumars, like didn't you go watch like Melo or Wade work out? Like you didn't get that vibe from them?
Yeah, especially Wade, because Wade was all heart, man. Like and also with Wade, like what he did at Marquette that season, that is truly one of the most bonkers seasons of college basketball that a player has ever had. And Joe Dumars was like, yeah, I'll take the guy from Europe none of us has ever seen. I watched him in one workout. I was blown away. I didn't talk to him afterwards. I didn't ask him any questions. There wasn't a psychological profile, which is a thing a lot of teams do now. Like there was no way to know anything else about Darko. And he was like, I feel so strongly about this. I'll draft him on the strength of exactly a single workout that nobody else was really allowed to see except for him and like one other GM.
Well, it was just back when the league was just driven by, who had the most elite big man, and teams were also in the back of their minds. Everyone had a game plan for, whenever you'd face the Lakers and Shaq, like you had to have some kind of a big body to put out there. Otherwise, like you just weren't going to hang. So
LeBron goes number 1 in that draft, and sandwiched right between LeBron James, Hall of Famer, and Carmelo Anthony, Hall of Famer, is Darko Milicic. This is trying to throw a rock out of a boat in the middle of the ocean and missing somehow. Because you got LeBron, Carmelo, Bosh, Wade, hell, even Chris Kaman had a better career than Darko Milicic. Kirk Heinrich, like you really did draft the one guy you should not have drafted there. Anyway, the text line is flooding now because now everybody's got.
This is such a nostalgic thing.
It's a nostalgic thing, but also people are weighing in with their NBA draft busts that they just.
Boris Diaw at 21 in that draft.
Boris
that would have
Diaw.
been a better pick.
The cream shake. Love Boris Diaw. All right, we're going to get to this text line because we're flooded now and we're late for a break. And I didn't expect us to be talking about bad drafts this long, but I'll just throw the question out there. Since we've got the meat and lions den, let's just go ahead and throw it out there. 888-368-1580. NBA draft busts. Easy, moist one. NBA draft busts. Who's your favorite / least favorite one, and why? Is it the guy that was the worst, or a guy that was in a draft where all the other players were better, or both, or some other reason? Let's find out on the other side. This is the Daily Blender here on 1580 The Fanatic.
Hey, sports bettors, Jeffrey O'Brien here to tell you about my favorite sportsbook and casino, and that is BetUS.com. Football's back, so it's time to get in on the action. I endorse one sportsbook and casino, and that is BetUS. If you want a game plan to win this season, then check out BetUS. BetUS went large for you this season with a huge offer, a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. That's right, a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. BetUS offers value other sportsbooks simply don't offer. Gamblers insurance, crypto bonuses, and casino bonuses. Plus, they have all the products you need. Competitive odds, parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and prop betting. When you're ready to lay down your bet, give your bet an edge. Why not combine your sign-up bonus with knowledge? Get that knowledge with expert analysis, picks, and predictions on all major sports on their very own BetUS TV. Get started today at BetUS.com or give them a call at 1-800-MY-BETUS. BetUS, where the game begins.
I'm at the movies, asking people if they'll switch seats with me for $574.
Here, take mine.
So what about $574 if you switch your home insurance to Allstate?
Man, too much work.
Not if you call them. They handle the switching.
Now that's a plot twist.
Shh. Check Allstate first, and you could save hundreds on quality home insurance today. You're in good hands with Allstate.
Not available in every state. Based on the national average annual savings for new home insurance customers surveyed in 2023 who switched to Allstate and reported savings. Savings vary.
Did you know that Wendy's has any size soft drinks for just $1? Yeah, any size, anytime. Like $1 Coke, $1 Sprite, or even $1 strawberry Fanta. Okay, could we maybe switch up the sound effect? Please? I'm losing it. Wow, no, not that. Any size soft drink for just $1? Gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. A la carte only. Not valid in a combo. Exclusions apply.
Direct savings and client focus, the cornerstones of the Diamond Dave philosophy.
Hi, I'm Diamond Dave Cantor. My team and I at Desert Wholesale Diamond can be your trusted friends with an inside scoop on the diamond world.
Just like they are to thousands of people around the world.
And just like we have been for over 34 years.
At Diamond Dave's, it's all about the diamonds and the savings, not paying for high-end retail locations or the overhead of a mall.
You stand to save big time with our by appointment professional office approach combined with direct importing.
When you choose Diamond Dave's, you choose huge savings, top quality, and excellent service. Call, email, or message us for an in-person appointment.
Or sit back and relax for free FedEx shipping anywhere in the USA.
Call Diamond Dave at 480-397-2450. That's 480-397-2450. Or follow him on Instagram at Diamond Dave Cantor. That's at Diamond Dave, Kantor.
Download the Fanatic app.
News, scores, social media updates, and more on your smartphone, on your tablet. The free Fanatic app, available at the Google Play Store or the App Store and at 1580thefanatic.com.
So we have an exploding text line here on the Daily Blender, wrapping up hour number 2 of the show, broadcasting live from the Harman Solar Studios here in Scottsdale. It's far less sunny than it was before because, I don't know if you noticed, the days are starting to get a little shorter. But we're talking about the NBA, some draft busts. We've got a little hockey talk on the text line as well. There are some people who are excited to just watch hockey. I mean, it's sad that the Coyotes are gone, but they're happy to just watch whatever hockey is on local TV. We were talking about how the Golden Knights have kind of moved into this broadcast area. We were talking about how the Colorado Avalanche have done it. We were talking about how the Utah Hockey Club is even kind of doing it too. So we're talking about, you know, how do you feel about seeing some of these other teams rather than your own team in the market? Are you watching? Are you going to ignore it? Are you still mad about it? We're getting into that. We're talking NBA. Somehow our NBA conversation on the ranking of the top 100 players in the NBA has morphed into a conversation about the biggest draft busts in the NBA and in the history of the NBA. And there's some really good ones here. There are also some that I don't necessarily agree with, but there's some really, really good ones. And we're going to try and do our best to get to as many of these as we possibly can on the text line. And we're going to start with Hamilton Porter because he was the last person that texted in before we went to break. And he said, probably the most famous bust, Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan.
which that one sucks a lot. But I think a lot of it too was Bowie with the injuries. I'm not saying he would have done what Michael Jordan did, because that's clearly, 6 titles for Michael Jordan. That man was playing on another level that anybody else in the league was at that time. So I'm not going to say that, but it wasn't like crazy that you would draft Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan, in the sense that that was a time frame in the history of the league when you played through the big man. He's 7'1", he's 230 pounds, strong finisher at the basket. I wasn't alive though, as this was 1984. So I don't know if people thought that was insane at the time, or if that's something that when you look back on it now, you go, well, obviously you take Jordan. If you had the draft to do again, you take Michael Jordan. So Sam Bowie, obviously big answer, just because the guy that goes second is MJ. But I wonder if that was considered crazy when it happened, because when the Pistons took Darko at 2 back in 2003, that was crazy. Everybody thought that was absolutely nuts at the time, especially since, back then we didn't really trust European players the way we do now. We trust Jokic to get the job done. We trust Giannis. We trust Luka. Didn't really trust anybody not named Dirk at that time frame. So I'm really interested in if anybody was watching that draft in 84 or following it. Was that crazy? Was that as crazy then as it seems now? Because I'm always curious about that kind of stuff. So we'll get to Boogie. Boogie says, do you remember when the Suns let go of Harden and kept Bledsoe? There is a Heat curse. When what?
Let go of Harden?
When the Suns had Bledsoe, but I don't remember.
Harden has never been.
Boogie, re-ask your question. I'm pretty sure that you're not saying what I think you're saying, because James Harden hasn't suited up for this particular team. He's trying to suit up for every NBA team. Clearly, if you just look at his career arc is James Harden playing on a team for a couple of years, deciding that he doesn't want to be there, gaining an unfortunate amount of weight for a basketball player, and then getting traded and losing that weight and being fine for 2 years. He'll try to play for all 30 teams, but I don't think he's quite made it to Phoenix just yet. T-Licious says, hockey is dead to me. I only care when I get a 50% parlay boost on tokens now. Look, if the parlay is keeping you in it, then it's keeping you in it, but I understand. CK says, yeah, I remember Keon, the Ayton apologist. I would rip him for being lazy, soft, and clumsy, and you would defend him like he was your firstborn. So I called you Keandre Ayton for a few days.
Keandre Ayton?
Yeah, because he was playing, because you were ripping him, but I was like, he's playing well. Like, if the guy's averaging 20 and 10, then I'm not going to complain about that. I'm not going to sit here and argue about, oh, the guy's averaging 20 and 10, but I'd like him to average 22 and 11. Like, that's we're just in the weeds at that point on a level that I just didn't care to be in. The guy's giving you 20 and 10.
How many texts did we just get saying Ayton's like the biggest draft bust?
And he's not.
He's not.
He's not. I don't like when like I said, my team had Kwame Brown, which I think the Wizards, we're number 1 at being dead last at everything. There is no way. Kwame Brown never went to a finals. Kwame Brown never even looked like a good player. At no point in his entire career with the Wizards. There was like a brief year where he looked halfway decent with the Lakers for some reason, but that was it. At no other point in his career did he look like a good basketball player. You can't say that about DeAndre Ayton. I don't think he has any place being at the top of the list in worst busts of all time all.
Is he a disappointment?
Oh, absolutely.
I think you can say that, but people have conveniently short memories when it comes to DeAndre Ayton. Once upon a time, he had a very, very good postseason run for us. That was a huge part of why we made the NBA Finals.
And that was the time I was defending him. And when that was happening.
And in his case, I think it could be a maturity thing, a emotional maturity thing.
Yeah.
Perhaps he wasn't, responding, well to the kind of pressure and motivation he's getting from a guy like Chris Paul, who's like a very type A,
in your face. And you could see it. There were times where like Monty could build him back up. And that was the thing that always made it work for me is if Monty's here, Monty can kind of build it back up. But when he stopped listening to Monty too, then you're just like, I don't even know what to do with the guy. Yeah.
It's done.
And he's very sensitive to criticism. So it's like, if you don't have that guy on your corner, if you turn on the guy in your corner, nothing's going to save you from the wrath of Chris Paul. Zero. You're getting cooked because Chris is not going to hold back. And so that is where things fell apart. And I wish it didn't. And all of those things about DeAndre Ayton and him being soft and all of that was true. But it was also true that the guy was very good at being a rim protector. And he was very good at getting you 20 points and 10 rebounds a night. I don't think that's a bust.
In the right basketball situation, he can flourish. And that's been proven, him right now in Portland. This is just some kind of, rest stop for him. This isn't his final place within the NBA. There's another team out there that is going to figure out how to leverage him in a better system with a pass first point guard. This is a huge reason why he was fighting hard to get to the Indiana Pacers. He saw what Tyrese Halliburton could potentially do for his game. And that's the exact kind of point guard that he really does need to be with, to bring out the kind of best play in him. So I do think, compared to some of the guys that were drafted below DeAndre Ayton, definitely disappointing. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to try and pick a bust out of that 2018 draft, Marvin Bagley has such a better case than DeAndre Ayton does.
Yeah. And speaking of Tyrese Halliburton, because if I jump back to the text line, Hamilton Porter also says, to me, the most recent bust was James Jones blowing it drafting, and he couldn't remember the name of the player over Tyrese Sticks. Yeah, over Tyrese Halliburton, especially when we needed a point guard. But, that to me, the draft process is kind of an inexact science. And once you get to the middle of the first round, I don't know that you're like, the guy's a bust. Okay, Tyrese Halliburton was drafted 12th. If you're drafted 12th, that means that we didn't know that you were going to be the player.
I was talking Jalen Smith, and I was so upset that draft. I still remember.
The reason why that upsets me in that draft isn't the Halliburton part of it. It's that genuinely Vassell goes after that. And then after Halliburton, you get Cole Anthony a little bit further down in that draft. It just seemed like a really odd choice to go Jalen Smith there, given the other options, because it wasn't just Halliburton.
Well, and the writing was on the wall about Chris Paul, and that, we didn't have, an extended period of time of relying on him to be our starting point guard. We needed to prepare for life after Chris Paul, and Campaign, as serviceable as he was in the postseason, he was never going to be that next guy.
And I think they believed in him just a little bit too much. And for some reason bought into whatever allure that Campaign had there, because he did have some. He would show up in spots and play in big moments and do really well. But there's a difference between coming off the bench to do that and being the starting point guard of the team. And Campaign was also a little small too. So, guy's a hard worker. I like him. But that was not going to be your heir apparent to Chris Paul. I think James Jones kind of leaned into that a little harder than he probably should have. That's a really, really good text, Hamilton Porter. Boy, we're flooded here on the text line. I'm trying to keep up. We are falling further and further behind. So we're going to double time when we come back. It's going to be just text all the way through, text and reactions. But we're going to get to it, clean it up, and then try to move on to more NFL, which I was trying to do for the last hour. It did not happen. Daily Blender, 1580 The Fanatic.
The Fanatic is your home for fall football. Catch the NFL and NCAA live games on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic. Brought to you by Bet365. It's never ordinary at Bet365.
You may know me as Ruben Gallego, but I've had a lot of titles over the years. First, son, or mijo, by my single immigrant mom who worked so hard to make ends meet, and brother by my three incredible sisters. I've been called janitor, line cook, construction worker, doing any job I could to help out since we didn't have much. I earned the title graduate from Harvard University. I was called infantryman in the Marines when my company took some of the heaviest losses in Iraq. I'm called congressman, proudly representing Arizona the past 10 years. But my favorite title of all is dad. to my two beautiful kids, whose future I'm fighting for every day. That's why today, my title is Candidate for Senate. I'm fighting to lower costs and secure our border. I'm Ruben Gallego, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message because for me, it's never been about titles. It's about standing up for hardworking Arizonans like you.
Paid for by Gallego for Arizona.
Hey, I can't wait for golf this weekend, huh, buddy? Time flies. Love you, man. Oh, don't forget your knee brace again. We aren't in college anymore.
Moments together matter. So help protect yourself from RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV. And there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
It's fall football season, and Kasai Japanese Steakhouse is doubling down, now with 2 Valley locations. When it comes to Asian cuisine, no one does it better and more authentic than Kasai, where talented teppanyaki chefs create the food, the fire, and the fun of teppanyaki. Kasai Japanese Steakhouse isn't just dinner, it's dinnertainment. A memorable dining experience where a delicious 7-course meal is paired right at your table with flair. It's a perfect choice for celebrations, date nights, or a night on the town. Choose from over 30 different items and combinations of teppanyaki, Asian fusion, and innovative sushi. Happy hour is always on fire and offered daily with specials on their Asian-inspired comfort food like Korean steak tacos, Mongolian barbecue ribs, and signature Wagyu beef sliders. Always a memorable dinner, or catch the game and a bite at the bar at Kasai. Now with 2 locations, Scottsdale Road in Thunderbird and in Peoria at the 101 in Northern. Go to KasaiTeppen.com. That's KASAI Teppen.com, or search Kasai on your mobile phone.
Championship weekend is coming back to the desert. 4 title races in 3 days means there will be a buzz in the air all weekend long. NASCAR Championship Weekend at Phoenix Raceway, November 8th through the 10th. Get your tickets now at PhoenixRaceway.com.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM.
It's time for the third hour.
All right, people, settle down because it's time.
Time for what?
Showtime.
When does it start?
Right now. 3, 2, 1.
Let's get on with the show. Let's do it.
Hour number 3 of the Daily Blender is now underway. You're welcome and/or I'm sorry. We're broadcasting live from the Harmon Solar Studios here at 1580 Fanatic. I'm Keon Rose, and my Beat the Book co-host Dylan Cohen is joining us on the show. And you're on the text line, 888-368-1580. And boy, are you on the text line because it exploded. The text line's exploded. And now we just have answers to various things all over the place. We'll see if we can try and rein this one back in. We'll start with, wow, I think it just moved on me. But we'll start with Dick Whiskers because he says, based off of his preseason play, what kind of role do you think Ryan Dunn will have, if any?
I see him being a contributor, particularly in instances where, there's going to be some injuries down the road. We're going to be shorthanded at times. If Ryan Dunn can really hang his hat on being a consistent 3-point shooter and, being a capable defender, he's going to carve out some minutes for himself in the rotation. I would say, it's completely possible that he, gets some reliable minutes and maybe he's like 7th, 8th guy kind of off the bench, like best case scenario. I'm not going to be looking to like go bet on like his player props or anything like that. I don't think he's going to have that consistently big of a role. But for a rookie coming in on a team with championship aspirations and, that's largely expected to be a contender, he's going to be featured for sure. And also with Oso Ighodaro as well. Oso Ighodaro, to me, has a little bit more upside and potential for having a bigger role just in his ability to be that small ball center for the Suns whenever teams go small and we can't keep Nurkic on the court. Dunn is going to be playing behind, Durant, Booker, Grayson Allen, there's some bigger names, Royce O'Neal, so it's probably going to depend a little bit more for him on one of those guys, not playing, for him to be able to step up and get some minutes and carve out a bigger role.
Yeah, so there. Hope that answers your question there, Dick Whiskers, and Whistling Gerbil answering the the question of biggest draft bust. I disagree with this, Whistling Gerbil. It says Bronny James. Bronny James was drafted very late in the second round, and while he should not have been drafted at all, in my opinion, tail end of the second round, you could fill many books with the names of people who were drafted in Bronny's spot and washed out. Because you're usually scraping the bottom of the barrel at that point in the draft anyway. I don't think that Bronny James qualifies as a draft bust. Seabass says, my vote is for 2013 first overall pick by the Cleveland Cavaliers, Anthony Bennett. His best season saw him score only 5.2 points per game, and his worst saw him only get 84 minutes of run. Over. No, that's a good one, Seabass. The Anthony Bennett one is also another one of those where, to be fair, he wasn't in a great draft. That was another bad draft that year. I remember, I think that was 2013, I want to say. 2013 draft was not good.
There's one name in particular on here that if this person's name wasn't here, it would be much more difficult to say that Anthony Bennett is a big bust. However, this person's name is here, so therefore Anthony Bennett is a big bust. Number 15, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 2013
Now,
NBA
granted,
draft.
Giannis was a gamble at the time. So in hindsight, it's one of those that looks bad. But I remember on the broadcast when he got drafted, the NBA analyst guy was like, yeah, Giannis is like 2 years away from being 2 years away from being ready. So he was clearly a gamble. But I'll give you some other names that actually did do things in the NBA that came after that. Contavious Caldwell-Pope, CJ McCollum, Steven Adams, Kelly Olynyk, and then, of course, also Giannis. But a little bit later on, Dennis Schroeder is also in this. Tony Snell. There were players who started in the NBA for almost a decade, drafted after. And you took Anthony Bennett, who I could have told you Anthony Bennett was a bad pick. I never liked Anthony Bennett. The entire draft process, I hated Anthony Bennett. I thought that he's everything that people say about Zion in terms of he's not quite the right size. He's not quite a center. He's not quite a power forward. He may not even be a small forward. Like, what is he? But Zion can jump out of a building. And Anthony Bennett was an under the rim, undersized player that played in the post, didn't like passing, didn't really like practice. I don't understand what the Cavaliers were looking at with Anthony Bennett. And I understand that it wasn't exactly exciting watching like Otto Porter. It couldn't have been great scouting him. He was just okay, or Cody Zeller. But man, Anthony Bennett was clearly not that dude.
Yeah, and I know for me, and Keon and I talked a little bit about this over the break. If you look at the 2017 NBA draft, I think we're far enough away now to really kind of define the number one pick here as a bust. I'm talking about Markelle Fultz. And there's a little bit more to his story that Keon did, point out to me that, it kind of takes, I guess, the responsibility of that a little bit off of Markelle Fultz. But I mean, you look at some of these other names, that came right after him: Jason Tatum, De'Aaron Fox, Lauri Markkanen, Bam Adebayo, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, Derek White, so Kyle Kuzma. There's a number of more serviceable players on here, and the other part of this that also made it stand out to me was just the whole dynamic of I think it literally happened on draft night. The Celtics were supposed to pick first in this draft, and they swung a deal with the Sixers to go down, and they still got the best player. So they just basically picked up free future draft capital. All because they knew the Sixers, for whatever reason, were so fixated on Markelle Fultz. And that didn't work out so well for Philadelphia.
It did not work out for Philly. Also, I'd like to point out that like Markelle Fultz injured his shoulder when they drafted him, tried to reach out to the team to get a new shooting coach. The team did not respond. So Markelle Fultz went with some guy that screwed up his shot entirely. And then he got the yips. It was bad. What I'm saying is the Sixers did way more in helping that be a bust than just picking the guy. They also failed to develop him in literally every way possible. Latina Leprechaun says, I'm going to vote for Jay Williams of the Chicago Bulls, the number 2 draft pick in the 2002 draft, which Jay Williams, not a good career in large part because of a motorcycle accident that he had that derailed him, though I think it was his fault. Like, he was driving the motorcycle way too fast. And look, he's a young guy. Young guys make mistakes, but like, if that mistake leads to you being injured, then who are we supposed to point a finger at? That they're still your actions, and at the end of the day, you're still an adult.
That is one of my absolute favorite draft classes of all time. And anyone that's been a longtime Phoenix Suns fan will remember that 2002 NBA draft very fondly. That was the year of Yao Ming and the pandemonium of the giant 7'6" Chinese center that was coming over. And
when he started playing, you're like, oh, he actually can play. He's not just big. He could shoot. He can move around really well.
But this was also one of the final years that you could still, go and grab a guy out of high school. And what did the Phoenix Suns do? They made a play for a unknown young talent named Amari Stoudemire.
How about that?
Came into the NBA, set the league on fire, won Rookie of the Year over Yao Ming.
Yeah.
And then,
I forgot that season.
He had highlights still. So that was back when the Suns had Stephon Marbury as the starting point guard. Starbury with Sean Marion. And I will always remember this. This is one of my top Phoenix Suns moments ever. That year, they played the San Antonio Spurs in the first round of the playoffs. Suns were a very large underdog. Game 1 of that series in San Antonio, Amari Stoudemire hit a 3-pointer. He banked it in at the buzzer to force overtime. And honestly, go look up this highlight if you don't know what I'm talking about. Stephon Marbury makes one of the most insane half-court buzzer beaters, like, to win the game. And we ended up stealing game 1. We lost that series, but like, running completely off balance, just heaves up a prayer, banks it in. Ultimate disappointment for all the Spurs fans. And this, in a way, almost kind of kicked off what ended up being like a pretty bitter 10-year rivalry, between the Suns and the Spurs. So
which is one of my favorite rivalries that I would like to have back, but it just never seems like the Spurs and the Suns are on the same page at the same time. Maybe sometime soon, though, because that Victor Wembanyama is not going away. The 2002 draft, great memories for you, Dylan. Pinocchio. Is it Pinocchio? No, it was 4808 who said earlier in the show, about 2 hours ago, I'm really bad at names. Do you have any suggestions? Moldy tuna fish salad? I don't think we'll give you that one. Let us think about that one a little bit. I know Kiss the Cook had some names that I'm concerned about, but maybe we can try and get that to work. Let's see if we can get 4808 a texter nickname there. He's a big Senators fan, Patriots fan, Celtics fan. He says Halifax Mooseheads. I don't even know what sport that is. So I could not tell you. But, now that we know those teams, Senators, Celtics, Patriots. He's from Canada. He grew up listening to 80s radio in New York. Surely there's something we can do with that. But he does also say, I would like to say Kwame Brown of the Washington Wizards in 2001, the year before your good year, is arguably one of the worst years of my entire life, which is when the Wizards took a number 1 pick and drafted also a guy directly out of high school, Kwame Brown. Before they drafted Tyson Chandler, Pau Gasol, Eddie Curry, Jason Richardson, Shane Battier, Eddie Griffin.
You got JJ down on that list. Number 10.
Yeah. Joe Johnson. You could keep going down that list. Richard Jefferson. You could find NBA starters.
Number 19.
All the way down that list. Michael Bradley, Jason Collins.
Ooh, Agent Zero, second rounder.
Yeah.
Gilbert Arenas.
Who the Wizards would later get through free agency. But the Kwame Brown pick. And you know who made the pick? His airness himself, Michael Jordan. So that makes it worse. Because we all thought, well, Mike played in the league. Surely somebody, if anybody knows what a good basketball player looks like, what a future star looks like, Michael Jordan ought to know.
And LeBron James wants to own a team one day.
Just take the knife and just shove it between my ribs already. Good night. State Street Brats says, State Street Brats. I'm going to say Brats. Says, I remember thinking Johnny Flynn was going to be a good NBA player, and he was a complete bust. Yeah, and he was drafted in front of Steph Curry. The Minnesota Timberwolves had the chance to draft Steph Curry, not once, but twice. They think they had back-to-back picks. And the Timberwolves took Johnny Flynn and not Steph Curry. That did not age well. And honestly, at the time, it was kind of ridiculous because Curry was coming off of that Cinderella Davidson year where everybody, it's not like you didn't know who Steph Curry was. He wasn't some unknown guy by the time the draft rolled around. He was maybe not somebody you would think to take number one because he did come from a small school, but he could clearly light it up. And for whatever reason, the Timberwolves, they were the Timberwolves. So there they are on that. Big George says, how about LaRue Martin? Drafted number 1 overall by the Portland Trailblazers back in 1972. Martin retired after only 4 NBA seasons, but his short career is not because of injuries, but because he sucked. He averaged 5.4 points per game for his career and only surpassed 15 minutes per game in 1 season. He never gained head coach Jack McCloskey's trust, and the team eventually replaced Martin with Bill Walton, a fellow number 1 overall pick who was much more talented. And yeah, obviously that was a pretty crazy scenario too. And like Jack McCloskey was a great coach. So,
well, I just looked up that draft. I mean, number 12, Julius Erving.
Okay. So
number 10, Paul Westphal.
This is one of those, again, I was not alive in 1972. I really do wonder when people look back on that, was LaRue Martin an obvious pick and he just didn't pan out? Or was it absolutely insane for them to draft him there? I'll never know.
Well, number 2 was Bob McAdoo. So.
Okay, so that's you were doing some drugs.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like that, like something happened there then, because like how did you see Bob McAdoo and you're like, yeah, the guy that wound up averaging 5 points a game, he's clearly better here. Unless it's just another one of those situations where we'll always roll the dice on the 7-footer, even if there are guards and wings who play the game actually better.
Big George, I was not alive back then either, so I'm just really curious because I'm looking at this list.
No, Big George was also not alive. So
well, he seems to have more knowledge about back then than me. Tell me about Corky Calhoun, number 4 pick to the Phoenix Suns.
Also,
true story.
Gotta write that down and nominate Corky to the all-name team because that's a great one. That's an all-timer. Beer Bob says Jordan wasn't even number 2. Elijah 1 was number 1, and Olajuwon was number 1, then Bowie, then Jordan. That's right. Which, hey, good thing the Rockets got a couple of rings out of Olajuwon, or that one would not feel great.
Here's another number 2 pick that absolutely is a bust. I'm kind of shocked no one's shouted this one out yet. Hasheem Thabeet.
Hasheem Thabeet
from the 2009 NBA draft.
If of all the guys, I thought Thabeet was going to be the coldest dude in the league. I really thought he had everything. That is one of my, like, I look back on that and go, I mean, I was a kid, so I'm glad like I didn't have a job where people paid me to say things about Hasheem Thabeet. But honest to God, like it seemed like, oh, that guy can't miss. Like just straight up, you can't miss. And then he was just a miss. He was just straight. And it wasn't like it wasn't injuries or anything like that. It was another situation where he just wasn't good enough. Plain and simple.
Yeah, well, and he got drafted by the Grizzlies, and I want to say this was like around the time where like they had Zach Randolph. They did have Marc Gasol by then. So like, you know, how was he supposed to kind of fit in anyway? It just, I don't know, that wasn't the greatest pairing for him. But either way, I mean, James Harden was right after him. Steph Curry's 5 picks after him. DeMar DeRozan came after him. Jrue Holiday came after him.
All right.
You know,
now we're just running up the score.
Yeah.
But yeah, boy, Mr. Pink Eye, your mom went to college. Best comeback joke on Napoleon Dynamite. Not only do I not understand the context of that joke anymore, as I have not seen that movie in 17 years, literally half my lifetime ago, even if you gave me the context, I still wouldn't understand what that was. Hefty Lefty had a few texts that we should probably read because that's another one from like an hour ago. He said, should have named them the Utah Fry Sauce. be more interesting than what they are. He also said, I mean, Houston only was without a football team for 5 years. But that's the thing, is when you have those 5 years, you just don't know when it is that the team's going to come back. Like 5 years is a long time when you're just not certain if you'll ever get one again. But I do hope that that's the case for the Coyotes, and not what happened in Seattle. He also says Anthony Bennett is bad. Only made it 4 seasons. Olowokandi was bad for the Clippers too. Kwame was a bust as a number 1 pick, but he was at least a serviceable player. He was a serviceable player other places than Washington. He was not a serviceable player for the team that drafted him. And as a Wizards fan, that's all I care about. He also says Jordan went 3rd. Dream went 1st. Yeah, we got that corrected. He said no one blames Houston. Blazers also already had Drexler at the time, so they drafted for positional need. They at least had somewhat sound basketball reasoning. Yeah, okay. And that's what I wanted to know. Like, what was the reaction to it? Was it seen as like crazy that they did that? I guess not, because if you had Clyde the Glide, at the time, again, Jordan was not the Jordan we know now. You might think to yourself, no, we can make this work with Clyde. We just need a big guy. We'll make it go. And then Jordan turns into Jordan, and then, everybody's calling you stupid, but that's a hindsight is 2020 kind of thing. Megatron says people forget Dream went 1. I usually don't forget that. I forgot that today, though. So, sorry. And I appreciate everybody correcting me on that and not letting me be wrong for the rest of this show, because that would have been very hurtful. Bowie wasn't a ridiculous pick. Bowie wasn't a ridiculous pick, rather, but he was coming off of a serious injury. Jordan should have been the pick. Thanks, Megatron. That's what I was looking for. Honestly, that's really what I was looking for. Jake the Snake says, hey, guys, love the show. What happened to the Daily Blender? I haven't listened for a long time. Well, what happened to the Daily Blender is that Jeffrey is still on vacation, and Randy is out. T-Licious says, Odin is a bigger bust than Bowie. Bowie made 3 All-Star games with the Nets. He was a disappointment more than a bust. And I agree with that, T-Licious, but I'll say that Odin was a bust in the same way that, like, Bill Walton was, where and Walton even had a better career than Odin, because Odin got injured worse faster, basically. But he just had bad knees, and that's not his fault. When I think of the worst busts, the guys that make me the angriest, they're the guys that are lazy. Anthony Bennett is frustrating, because it's not like he was completely untalented. He's just lazy. Kwame Brown, at least in Washington, lazy, absolutely lazy. He made Michael Jordan give up a front office job and come back to play basketball to see if he could kick some fire into the guy, and it still didn't work. Lazy? I struggle with lazy. That's kind of where I draw the line. You got to work really hard at your craft. And Kwame did not do that.
I've got another one. And this one, honestly, it pains me to say it, because I was a tremendous fan of his when he was in college at Arizona. But if you go all the way back to the 2011 NBA draft, the number 2 pick, Derek Williams.
Derek Williams was
unbelievable.
Was a monster.
I mean, absolutely unbelievable in college. Felt like he could do anything on the court. Extreme athleticism. I mean, he took on Kyrie Irving in March Madness, and Arizona being the underdog in that game against Duke. I want to say it was Sweet 16. They put the smackdown on Duke, and honestly, Arizona that year was the second best team in all of March Madness. They fell victim to this magical Cinderella run that Kemba Walker had, back in the day with UConn.
Oh, this draft.
So
this draft makes me physically ill, and I'll tell you why. And then we'll go to break, and then we'll come back, because we still have 1.5 billion texts answering this question on the other side. This draft makes me mad because my Washington Wizards at number 6 drafted Jan Vesely, who, embarrassing for a litany of reasons, but I'll start with one. Vesely was called the Eastern European Blake Griffin for a long time. ESPN gets a camera and shoves it in this man's face and says, hey, now that you've been drafted in the NBA, how do you think you stack up against a guy like Blake Griffin, who you've been compared to? And Jan Vesely said, I don't think I'm the Eastern European Blake Griffin. I think Blake Griffin is the American me. 1. 2, After getting drafted, Jan Vesely would make out with his girlfriend on TV for like 5 whole seconds. She's really hot, but I didn't want to see all that. Like that's just not what it was odd. It was bizarre. That's just not the place for it. Literally get a room later. It's fine. 3, John Wall was the point guard of the team, just coming off of a Rookie of the Year campaign. The team was inviting him to all these workouts like, hey, John, who do you want to play with and all this stuff? He goes to one of the workouts with the scouts and the general managers and the whole front office. And this is a story of just how deeply unserious an organization at basketball the Wizards have been for most of my life. John Wall goes, who's that guy over there? He's not missing anything. And they tell him, oh, that's Klay Thompson. And John said, you should draft him. I'd love to play with Klay Thompson. And they drafted Jan Vesely. That's that. We're going to get to the rest of your text because I need to calm down. I think I just made myself mad, and I just don't have the ability to speak right now. I'm upset. But that's the Wizards, boys and girls. That's what Wizard Talk Radio sounds like. It is not good. I wish that on exactly 0 people in this great state, 48, because you don't deserve that. This is the Daily Blender here on 1580 The Fanatic.
It's fall football on The Fanatic. Catch all the live game play-by-play, Monday night, Thursday night, and Sunday day and night NFL games, plus the Saturday NCAA football game of the week. It's all right here on the Valley's home for football. 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365.
Did you know your life insurance is an asset you can sell? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. For almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. And at abacuspays.com, we've created a free policy value calculator so you can find out the worth of your policy in just seconds. There are no fees and no obligations. Get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Learn more at abacuspays.com.
Not all policies will qualify. Not available in all states.
Did you know that Wendy's has any size soft drinks for just $1? Yeah, any size, anytime. Like $1 Coke, $1 Sprite, or even $1 strawberry Fanta. Okay, could we maybe switch up the sound effect, please? I'm losing it. Wow, no, not that. Any size soft drink for just $1? Gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. A la carte only. Not valid in a combo. Exclusions apply.
JD Hayworth here, and the road to feeling better leads to my good friends Dr. William and Ava Gaspar at Beehive IV Wellness in Chandler. With both licensed nurses and physicians on staff by appointment or walk-in, Beehive IV Wellness takes a holistic, naturopathic approach that helps your body with self-healing. All of today's popular treatments are available at Beehive Wellness, from IV hydration to joint injections, even popular semaglutide for weight loss. If you haven't tried IV treatment, you're missing out on your chance to really get healthy. So look them up, make an appointment, or simply walk into Beehive IV Wellness at their Chandler clinic, where you always get a free initial consultation. Mention me, JD Hayworth, get half off your first treatment. Search Beehive IV Wellness on your mobile phone. You'll thrive with Beehive.
What's up, everybody? Nick Costos here, host of You Better You Bet, reminding you to check out the show. Now, why should you check out You Better You Bet? Because we bring you the most fun. We bring you the most insightful, the most entertaining show in the wagertainment world. From up-to-the-minute breakdowns of backdoor covers, bad beats, and the cheers and tears that come alongside them. Plus, you'll get the best betting analysis anywhere from myself, Ken Barkley, and some of the best minds in the sports wagering world. So tune in weekdays, noon to 3 on Arizona sports betting station, 1580 and 99.3, The Fanatic.
And we're back and we're rolling along. We're talking about NBA draft bust. I finally calmed down. Every time I think about that draft night with Jan Vesely, I want to fight an entire army by myself. I'm that mad.
We didn't even talk about the people that came after Jan Vesely.
Yeah, the people that came after Jan Vesely. If we just take a quick look at it, we got Bismack Biyombo.
who would have been better. Kemba Walker, Clay Thompson, the Morris twins. I guess both of whom would eventually wind up here in Phoenix, but one went to Houston on draft night. Kawhi Leonard. All right.
Nikola Vucevic.
Kenneth Faried had a good run there where he was again. Kenneth Faried was more the player that they thought Jan Vesely was going to be than Jan Vesely actually was. So there's that. Yeah. No, JD Butler. Norris Cole had a pretty good run. Bojan Bogdanovic.
Davis Bertans.
Man, in the second round, they screwed up too.
Oh, Isaiah Thomas, last pick of the draft.
Yeah, let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about it. Let's get back to the text line here. Bullseye says, how about Hasheem Thabeet? Number 2 overall pick by the Memphis Grizzlies in 2009. Drafted after him were Harden, Tyreek Evans, Steph Curry, DeMar DeRozan, Drew Holiday. Yeah, we did eventually get to that Bullseye. Bullseye texted that in at 5. So we did get there, but obviously your
Bullseye said it first.
Yeah. We'll give you the credit on that. You know what? We're cooking the stat sheets around here. We'll credit you with the assist. Average Joe says Greg Oden. Blazers took him over KD. It reminds me of the Suns taking Ayton over Luka. I don't know about that. Go back and watch Oden in college. And again, Oden and Ayton, I don't think you can compare the two guys because Greg Oden's knees just quit on him. He didn't quit. He fought like hell to get back in the NBA and actually did. The Heat were able to take him on, I think it was 2013. They were trying to go to the finals and he had 2 good games with them. And they were good games for a guy that hadn't played the game in like 8 years, but then his knees quit on him again in that playoff run. I felt really bad for the guy. He obviously is a draft bust, so you have to mention him here. But I hate when people put Greg Oden with guys that were just not working as hard as they should have.
I honestly feel like if Greg Oden was a prospect that happened to come into the NBA now versus way back when and still encountered the same issues with his knees, I feel like medicine is just better now and therapy and
because if you swap Oden and Embiid, their careers are probably Oden's is probably much better and Embiid's is probably much worse. Just how we've advanced medically over the years.
I mean, having the kind of knee problems that Greg Oden had, that killed careers and it still can, but you just don't see it nearly as often now because there's so many different types of therapy that are just available now that weren't available back then.
Even a guy like Kawhi, who people think might actually have the same thing that Greg Oden had, the reason why Kawhi is always in street clothes is they think it might actually be a similar degenerative knee issue. Kawhi has still managed to play enough games to win 2 championships. So that's something that can't be overstated. I think that if Oden had played now, maybe he might have had enough support to maybe squeeze out more of a career than he got. I don't think that he necessarily got the best shake at it, but that's just luck. That's just timing. He does count as a bust. I'm not saying he doesn't, but for him, I just always feel sorry for him whenever I hear about that. Him and all the other guys that had, knee injuries, like Walton should have been a much better basketball player, Bill, than he was. And he was still really good. He had a few seasons where it was like, damn, this is what Bill Walton looks like when he's healthy. He just didn't have nearly enough to be the kind of player that everybody knew he was when he was coming into the league. The Durant one looks bad in retrospect because of what Durant became. But Greg Oden, if you go back and watch him when he was at Ohio State, that guy was crushing people. And I totally understand the draft pick.
Yeah. And it actually kind of reminds me of do you remember when Kobe Bryant he was one of the first people to go to Germany to get the plasma injection, the PRP. And then now that's so much more commonplace.
Everybody does that now. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, that's the first thing he did was it's not obviously the same injury. McCaffrey's got the calf soreness, but it's a similar, you can just go to another country where they specialize in specifically your injury and see the best doctors on the planet Earth to handle your specific injury in a way that you just couldn't do it back then. And, and nobody thought to do it back then. It was just one of those things that would have been unheard of back when those guys were being drafted. Slow Mo Zo says Ralph Sampson, which is Yeah, that's another really good one. Who else was in that draft with Ralph
That's what I'm
Sampson?
looking up right now. That was the 1983 NBA draft, and yeah, there's a guy named Clyde Drexler down at number 14.
Fascinating. Yeah,
Byron Scott, number 4.
Oh boy,
Thurl Bailey. He had a pretty good career.
Yeah, he did.
Doc Rivers, second rounder.
Doc Rivers. Yeah, John Paxson at 19, going to San Antonio. Yeah, well,
this is kind of interesting one. Pace Mannion, he was second round. His son Nico Mannion went to Arizona and got drafted and couldn't hang around in the NBA.
Well, sometimes it just works out that way, Dylan. Sometimes it just works out that way. CK says, I would also submit, Seabass says, I would also submit the 2006 overall third pick by the Charlotte Bobcats, Adam Morrison. Morrison was supposed to be a sure thing at the NBA level. That was not the case, as Morrison ended his career with only 28 starts and 1,200 points over. That's a good one, Seabass, because you know what they were comparing Adam Morrison to at the time. And to be fair, Adam Morrison did not make this comparison himself. But it was an unfair comparison to throw on a kid. They were saying he was the next Larry Bird. Don't do that. Don't ever do that to somebody.
Even the number 1 pick that year, Andrea Bargnani, like he did stick around.
He flamed out eventually, but like he was rookie of the year, if I remember correctly, Bargnani.
The number 2 pick that year was LaMarcus Aldridge. Did Bargnani win rookie of the year?
I'm pretty sure
he made the all rookie first team.
Oh, okay, that's what it was.
So I mean, like, it wasn't one of those deals where he just crashed and burned right
out of the gate. He just, you could just see his numbers from his rookie year, just every year, just decline a little bit more, and he never added anything to his game. And the next thing you know, Air Bargs, as they called him back in the day, it was gone. CK says, can't talk bust without saying Greg Oden when KD was right there for the taking. And again, I implore you to just pull up Greg Oden Ohio State highlights. I understand that KD was cold because KD was at Texas. And that was my dude. And I was the biggest KD fan in the world. But listen, Greg Oden was nasty in college. And the only reason why we're having this conversation right now with how big that gap is between the two of them is that Oden didn't even get to really show what he could have been in the NBA. And that's the part where you're just like, man, KD left him in the dust in a way that is like generational. That's not Oden's fault, but I see what you're saying.
2 crazy things about that draft. In the top 4 picks, he had college teammates, which I don't think I've ever seen that before. I mean, if you can think of another college teammate duo that got drafted, I mean, with one of them being number 1, and then Mike Conley, who was Greg Oden's point guard at Ohio State, he was number 4.
And that was the idea. You keep them together. You've got a chemistry that you don't even really have to work on. Like, I understand the logic of it too. And I think that was what played into it. So I understand that, but it just in hindsight looks so much worse than it is. Because I remember watching Greg Oden at Ohio State, and it was like, when they're playing the Buckeyes, you just turn the TV on. That's the most excited I think I've ever been to watch Big Ten basketball in my life. Because normally it's a very painful experience.
Well, and the best center in that draft didn't even go until the second round.
Got a really good text here, by the way. 4808 says, is it too early to declare James Wiseman the number 2 pick by the Golden State Warriors in 2020 a bust? It's not. He is. Anthony Edwards goes number 1 overall, then James Wiseman at 2. Which I think a lot of people, not just the Warriors, I was there too. I thought, boy, that's a no-brainer of a pick. Obviously, you take the 7-footer with unlimited athleticism. And part of it was Wiseman and the injuries. Like it's another guy derailed by injuries, but the literal next pick was LaMelo Ball.
I would kind of caution you on that. I mean, to me, it's still a little too early, but he found his way to the Indiana Pacers, and Tyrese Halliburton does very good things for talented young big men. Yeah. And so far in the games that he's had with Indiana, he looks more promising than ever.
He may redeem himself. That doesn't mean that the teams who had to actually have him on the roster where he wasn't doing anything, Golden State and Detroit, they're not going to feel great about it. But yeah, I mean, he may prove to have something of a good career yet, but for those teams, he absolutely was a bust. And I also just think that, like with Wiseman, it seems to be injury related with him a lot. And again, it's an unfortunate situation, but you can only get benefit from playing with Tyrese Halliburton if you're actually on the court. And that's the big issue there. Big George says, would you consider Michael Olowokandi, the number 1 overall pick by the Los Angeles Clippers in the 1998 NBA draft, a bust? The answer to that question is obviously yes. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's okay. Here, I just pulled up that draft. Yeah, that's bad. Antoine Jameson, Vince Carter, Dirk, Paul Pierce, Rashard Lewis.
Yeah. It's like it's him, and then it's just a murderer's row of guys drafted after him. It's unbelievable, to be 100% honest. Bat Flipper says you are a 3rd string quarterback. I could throw it over those mountains. Man. I'm bad with pop culture references, you guys. I hope that's apparent now. Pinocchio says, Josh Rosen, yes, he's football, but such crap should count as the worst NBA pick also. As there is no other court to rule on this matter, I'll allow it. Sustained, Pinocchio. He's so bad he counts as a multi-sport bust. That we'll allow it. The Raven Kid says, because man, the Raven Kid was in here like 5 texts ago, and it just kept moving his text to the back of the line. So let's see if we can go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 texts to see. He says, are we naming forgotten draft picks? Never forget Hashim the Dream Thabit. Yep. He also said the Sixers can't develop shooters, plain and simple. See Ben Simmons. Well, I don't think anybody's developing that. Like, I mean, at this point, if you can't shoot like that,
Ben Simmons is like a one-off to me.
Yeah, he is his own kind of bad.
And I mean, it wasn't all bad in Philadelphia. They got an all-star out of him. He just kind of had a mental breakdown that was fueled by the fan base turning on him.
Because Philadelphia may be just not the correct city for Ben Simmons, because the fan base will turn on you there. That's just what they're like.
Well, and then his agent is helping him milk free money out of a guaranteed contract, which is just going to make that public sentiment about you continue to get worse.
I can't even imagine the things that were said to him. And I feel bad for Ben Simmons in the regard of he didn't deserve all the hate that he got as early as he got it. But then I also don't feel bad for him sometimes, because I'm like, are you trying though?
I mean, if you've actually looked at some of his preseason stats right now,
but this is the thing.
Things are trending back up for Ben Simmons.
I don't want to make this a Ben Simmons conversation, but Ben Simmons, not his whole career, but I'll say at least the last 3, maybe 4 years, Ben Simmons has been a con artist. He shows up in great shape every preseason. He looks fantastic. He's got these offseason workouts where it's like, wow, do you see it? Ben Simmons, he shoots threes now. And then the season starts and he never shoots one. And then he goes 30% from the field while taking 3 shots a game. He's a con artist at this point. Ben Simmons does not have any basketball left in him. And he is showing up every year to collect a paycheck, which good for him. I would do that too. But I don't buy into the preseason stuff with him specifically anymore. I can't. I get deceived by it every year. And at some point, I'm done being Charlie Brown trying to kick the football that is believing in Ben Simmons at any point in his life. I'm done. I can't do it. I have no more ability for it.
Well, the Nets are also just standing there, looking down Cooper Flag like, oh, yeah. Ben, hey, if if your back hurts, it's okay.
Yeah. No, that's the thing is the Nets are just like, no, this is the best case scenario. Yeah, our best guy, he can't play. Who would have imagined? It's Ben Simmons. We tried. Nothing disguises a tank job better than that one. The Raven Kid also says Stephen A. Smith is a really big fan of Kwame Brown, if you didn't know. Kwame Brown. Of course I know. Are we ready to call Dragon Bender a bust? I totally forgot that he was alive. Wait, hold on. Is he still in the league? Because I don't whatever happened to Dragon Bender. I genuinely want to know now. Oh my God. What happened? Because I remember when he came over and they were very excited about Bender. Let's see, 2016 draft.
Did you ever see
number 4 pick Dragon Bender? Oh my God, the Suns drafted him. I didn't remember that at all.
When the Suns were in talks to get Kevin Durant, there was someone that took a Dragon Bender jersey and then they wrote KE next to Bender, and then on the end they put A and T, so it reads as Kevin Durant. basically.
Look, jerseys are expensive. If you got to rework that, how you're going to work that, then look, I got no problems with you doing that at all. And yeah, the Dragan, we are ready to call Dragan Bender a bust. 2016 was 8 years ago. Yeah, it's more than long enough. That guy is done. Hefty Lefty says, it was a great podcast episode. Just really got distracted by the big neck zit on Prince that looked like it was going to pop at any second, the whole conversation. Okay, I have missed a couple of texts from Hefty Lefty that would make this probably make more sense. Tayshaun Prince, he said, I know that I spelled it wrong, was recently on the Knuckleheads podcast and sort of explained the Darko pick from the players' side. He said they probably wouldn't have traded Sheed if they got Melo. They also were at starting position, so they thought they could afford to draft a potential Dirk clone that needed time rather than Melo, who is probably looking to start right away. That's what the players were made to believe anyway. And I still think that that makes sense to the players, and as an explanation to the players, just take the best player available. You can draft for positional need, but I think that we've done this NBA thing long enough, and that is one of the lessons that you have learned. Just take the best player available. Don't look for positional need, because what ends up happening is you draft for the guy for positional need, and then a generational talent goes 2 picks later, and you could have had him, but you were drafting for positional need. Worst case scenario, you have too many guys who do the same thing too great, and now you just trade one of them and get deeper or whatever it is that you're looking to do. He also says it was a great podcast episode. Just really got distracted by the big neck zit on Prince that looked like it was going to pop at any second. The entire conversation, which is it. I like Tayshaun Prince, so I don't want to. But he's needed to pop that for years. It's been there for years. Just get it removed, Tayshaun. Just do it. It's not. You have the money. All right, that's enough about that. We're going to get back to the text line because apparently the picks are they're still coming, and I'm trying to get through as many of these as I possibly can. We'll also get to On This Date in Big Georgia sports history until the end of the show. Keep it coming, you guys. This is really, really fun. The Daily Blender on 1580 The Fanatic.
The Fanatic is your home for fall football. Catch the NFL and NCAA live games on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic. Brought to you by Bet365. It's never ordinary at Bet365.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hey guys, Jeffrey O'Brien here. Did you know Harman Solar has gone super high tech? There's an amazing tool at harmansolar.com that'll give you an instant ballpark solar estimate using satellites from space. You just type in a little information, and within seconds, you'll have an idea of just how little money it takes to save big on that monthly electric bill. I did it, and within seconds, they measured my roof and calculated my savings. It's very impressive. Go to harmansolar.com and give it a try yourself. That's harmansolar.com.
In business, service is everything. Cintas delivers what you need to better serve your customers. Whether it's freshly laundered work apparel for almost any job imaginable, tested and inspected fire protection systems, first aid and safety supplies, on-site AED training, or mops and restroom products, stocked and ready when you need them. Better work days happen together. So visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Did you know that Wendy's has any size soft drinks for just $1? Yeah, any size, anytime. Like $1 Coke, $1 Sprite, or even $1 strawberry Fanta. Okay, could we maybe switch up the sound effect? Please? I'm losing it. Wow, no, not that. Any size soft drink for just $1? Gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. A la carte only. Not valid in a combo. Exclusions apply.
Looking for a gift for your kids or loved ones? Consider getting them something they'll use for the rest of their lives, an education. Open an AZ 529 education savings plan today. Contribute just $50 a month, and they'll have nearly $20,000 by graduation. Plus, your money grows tax-free and can be used for college, vocational school, or workforce training. An AZ 529 account will help them unwrap their full potential. Learn more at az529.gov.
This message is sponsored by the Office of the Arizona State Treasurer.
So, what's your favorite thing about sports? The excitement, the action, or the 5-meat pizza and the six-pack?
Bingo.
That's what we thought. 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic, and always on at 1580thefanatic.com.
Well, it's been a very fun show today. We've been talking about draft busts. That's what we spent most of the show doing today. And we'll continue to do that. But before we do that, let me go ahead and jump to my email here, because there's a certain 7-foot lawyer that sent me on this date in Big Georgia sports history. Don't want to make him mad. And, this conversation feels like it's going to take up enough time that I'll probably forget. So I'll go ahead and get this done right now on this date in Big Georgia sports history. On this date in Big Georgia's ALCS sports history, back in the year 2003, in Game 7 of the ALCS, the New York Yankees captured their 39th American League pennant, beating the Boston Red Sox 6-5, thanks to Aaron Boone's 11th inning home run at Bronx Ballpark. The defensive replacement became the 5th player to end a postseason series with a home run, joining Bill Mazeroski of the 1960 Pittsburgh Pirates World Series Game 7 versus the New York Yankees, and Chris Chambliss of the 1976 New York Yankees. So, there's a few other players named there too, including Todd Pratt of the Mets. He did it against the Diamondbacks. So there you go. ALCS sports history. And I only brought that up because I just feel like the Yankees are winning that series. So that just connecting two things here, because I don't think the Guardians have much of a chance moving forward. They're trying. They're trying. Harry Soap says, I remember the first year of the NBA lottery. The Golden State Warriors had the worst record, and they ended up picking 3rd. The Knicks got Patrick Ewing. The Warriors got Joe Barry Carroll. Ugh. And that was one where people had questions about that draft lottery too, and the nature of how fair that was. There were rumors that the envelope, because they did it with envelopes back then and not ping pong balls. So it's more complicated now than it needs to be. Back then they did it with envelopes, and you just pulled the envelope out of the little thing that they were turning. They did it in public back in those days instead of behind closed doors. And there was word that they froze the envelope so that they could tell which one had the Knicks envelope in it, or the Knicks logo in the envelope, so they could just choose that one and say, look, it's completely random. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what the people tell me. Bullseye says, sad news today for ASU football, losing quarterback Sam Levitt for 4 to 6 weeks. That's the rest of the season. I did not hear of this, because that would be incredibly bad news, especially for how good Sam Levitt has been this season. And that is true. Jeff Sims will be getting the start against Cincinnati when the Sun Devils play next. So
that's
that's
that hit that he took against Utah, because he did come out of the game.
Yeah.
When that happened, he did eventually go back.
And that's the reason why people thought he was fine. But I guess all was not fine. And the 19-year-old ASU starter out, Jeff Sims in. That's breaking news.
Sims might be able to hold the fort down. I mean, Sims is on this team because he was expecting to get a shot at being the starting quarterback, and he has a ton of experience. I believe he was starting quarterback at Nebraska at one point.
He was. Yeah. I don't think that this is the season. And by the way, you're so far ahead of expectations. You just got to win one more and you're bowl eligible. You're going bowling. I think that the Sun Devils are going to be fine. And of course, this offense goes through Cam Scadaboo. Like, the dual threat nature of Levitt makes a lot of things great, which Sims, by the way, does have some of that in his game. This offense runs through Scadaboo, just so that everybody knows. 8568 says Michael Olowokandi. So many people have agreed. I also agree.
8658. CK says Odin looked 40 when he was 19. Even Wilbur can see his arthritis swelling. His face was old. He had an old face. He was not jumping around at Ohio State like a 40-year-old man. He was jumping like a guy who was 20 because that's how old he was, or at least in his 20s. Let's see here. We've got the moist one saying, surprised people saying Greg Oden and haven't brought up Len Bias, which you have to, because Len Bias had I believe it was a cocaine overdose. And we never even got to see Len play, and that has to be, and again, it kind of goes in the Jay Williams, like it's a very sad story. And with Len Bias, like there was a history there of something he struggled with. So it does suck. I
don't know. I have a hard time framing that as a bust.
Yeah.
It's just kind of more like a tragedy.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like you could frame it as a bust, but I don't know. He never even got the chance to play.
Well, and I mean, you do look at some of these other names further down the list, and this is where it's like, okay, yeah, no, there is something to the bust argument. You've got Arvydas Sabonis, Mark Price, Dennis Rodman.
But that's one of those things that's more unfortunate and, like you said, tragic than a bust. But like, if you're going to bring up Greg Oden, who's going down not from his own doing, like the guy did work hard, he just couldn't have his body hold up. Lost Toby says the Warriors taking LaMelo made no sense, but Wiseman is definitely a bust. He was bad on the court too. He looked lost with the Warriors. And yeah, like that's a major issue, is that even when he played, he never quite looked like the guy they thought they were drafting. Big George says, how about Dennis Hopson, the number 3 overall pick by the New Jersey Nets in the 1987 draft? Taken after him were Scottie Pippen, Reggie Miller, Kenny Smith, Horace Grant, and Kevin Johnson.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Ouch. Ouch.
Is this Kenny the Jet Smith? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the very same.
Yep.
The Raven Kid says the human cigar, Darko Milicic. Yeah, I mean, he's come up a few times, Raven Kid. And deservingly so, as the text line logs me out. So let's see if we can jump back in here before the show ends, because I want to get to some text line. Don't do this to me right now.
I mean, Mark Jackson, number 18 that year.
Guys,
Steve Alford, he was good.
I think the text line has died of death. Hold on. Let's see if we can get this thing going here. As Jeffrey O'Brien likes to say, it has died of death. Let's see.
Kind of shocked no one's texted in Josh Jackson yet. That was
Josh Jackson is
disappointment
another one that you okay. Let's see.
Let's see. Like, wow, you are really not mature enough for this, Josh Jackson.
There's a few players, I think, that just on sheer immaturity no longer in the league. All right, new browser. Who it is? Let's see if we can get this going. All right, we're back in. Bat Flipper says, "Oh, it's more Napoleon Dynamite quotes." Yeah, you keep quoting Napoleon Dynamite at me. I don't know any of the quotes except for "Vote for Pedro," because I haven't seen the movie in 17 years, and I'll be 100% honest with you. None of these quotes are getting me to rush that experience a second time. Mr. Roboto has said on the text line, by the way, it was the movie Napoleon Dynamite. It's heavily referencing Mormon culture. Yeah, we already got that one. I think it repeated your text there, Mr. Roboto. T-Licious says 2016 was the worst NBA draft for me. The Suns had the number 4 and number 8 and effed up both picks. Marquise Chris's scrub ass and the guy with a cool name, Dragan Bender. His name was cooler than his game, sadly. Hamilton Porter says probably the most famous bust, Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan. Definitely had that one show up more than a few times. Latina Leprechaun says, one more for me is the number 1 pick of the 1989 draft by the Sacramento Kings, Purvis Ellison. His teammates nicknamed him Out of Service Purvis because he averaged 9.5 points a game through his career and was traded by the Kings after his rookie season. And then he bounced around the league for the rest of the time in the NBA. And boy, guys, I appreciate all the texts. You're welcome, Big George. There are so many good answers still left to read, and I couldn't get to all of them. Moist One, Big George, 8659, Beer Bob, CK, Seabass. You guys were doing the thing today, and I appreciate it, but we're just going to have to do it again tomorrow, right here on 1580, The Fanatic.
Breaking news coming in from Bet365.